Hi everyone, and welcome to this live session. I took a break for a couple of days from doing the live streams because I was busy preparing the Black Friday, and as usual I do things late, so I spend the whole day drinking tea and writing tasting notes and taking pictures. But fortunately I had a late meal now, so I'm still ready for a couple of brews. And so we're going to start because someone asked in the comment section, so I will be checking the comment section a lot, I think. So feel free to ask questions in the comment section because I have not planned anything for today. I have not prepared a speech or anything. So I can see that Alec is now asking which of our teas has the longest lasting fragrance, and Alec really likes smoky tea, and it really comes well because I have actually, I can show you this cake. It's a bit damaged now because I opened it earlier, but I haven't had it today. And so this is from Tangan, and this is probably the most interesting tea in our new release because we've never released a tea like this before. So, well, the leaves look a bit like a mess, I would say. There's a lot of yellow flakes and the leaves look quite small. They look a bit different, I would say, from a lot of the puer we usually source. And this tea, I got the connection actually through my son's kindergarten teacher, who is from this village. It's a village in Tangan, so Tangan is in the southwest of Linsang. And I've never been to that place. We never hear about Tangan. It sounds very remote. So yeah, she gave me some samples and I really liked them. So I decided to order a pressing of this cake for this autumn. But this is spring material. Actually, I only released like one autumn tea because why? Because I already had a lot of teas to release. You can see that 12 new teas is quite a lot, and among those 12 new teas, only one of them is from this autumn. It's the Bakanoi tea, because I really liked the version from last year, and so why not order more? And we made some tea in Jingmai. We released the Mao Cha. I still have about 20 pouches of Mao Cha available, but we didn't make a lot ourselves. So Yubai asked her friend to make the tea, but we're not really satisfied with the taste. So I had again another tasting this morning and I decided not to release it because it's too astringent and it lacks the vibrance that we like having in our Jingmai tea. I think the processing was a bit different. Maybe she used a slightly shorter shaching, but it's tea that potentially could age well. So it's not bad tea per se, but I think it's just not ready for release now. So it's better not to disappoint our customers. And anyway, we have plenty of tea already. So yeah, a fragrant and slightly smoky tea, that would be this one actually. And I haven't had this kind of puer tea in a long time. So enjoy mouthfeel over fragrance, that I tend to look down upon the fragrant tea because it's more like perfume. But in some cases it can work, you know, and you always have surprises with tea, even after like 12 or 13 years of doing the tea business. That's what's wonderful about the puer tea. You can always change your opinion. And this tea, in a way, is on the verge of making me appreciate a good fragrance in tea. Because it has something you find in Mongku tea, and Tangyuan is not too far from Mongku. But yeah, the fragrance is really enticing. You have hints of smoke, but it's not very, maybe it's not even smoke, maybe it might just be that kind of smoke you find in Bulangshan tea or Pasha, you know, which tastes a bit like smoke, but is not. and the mouthfeel of this tea is quite light, so it feels quite perfumey. But somehow in this tea it works, you know. Often I will dismiss that kind of tea, but this tea really grabbed my attention. So that's why I decided to source it. It's very unusual, you know, because like as the kindergarten teacher, like a lot of random people could give you samples. But yeah, I just liked it, so why not? And I've never been to the place, but I did some research on the village. I just checked on Google Earth. We can go there actually. And yeah, the area looks quite remote. I'm gonna show you the village. Let me do that now actually. I hope the live stream is okay. And feel free to ask questions. I'm just gonna go to that village and then I will take more questions. So you can see, so we are, you have Sichuan, okay, you have Yunnan here. And so Tangan is really in the middle of nowhere. It's there. So it's, oh no, it's Monglian, sorry. Okay, I'm not very familiar with this geography, Shangyun, so we have to go up again. So you have Shuangjiang, so you see that's Mongku with the two big mountains here. And so you go south of the western big mountain, and you go south, and here you're right at the Burmese border, and Sangyuan is there, so it's it looks like a pretty small town by the Chinese standards, and you can see the long border with Myanmar. And that village is okay. Hi again. I'm trying to play with different VPN servers to see if we can get a better connection. Okay, sorry for the disconnect. I tried a new VPN server. I hope it will keep us connected throughout this live stream. It's been quite challenging to stay connected to VPNs lately. So Henbo is asking, how would you compare the two new Jingmai blacks you added from this autumn compared to the Yingpanshan or previous Jingmai you made from this spring, for example? Well, Jingmai tea is, of course, better quality material than Yingpanshan, so it reflects in the price. Yingpanshan is, you could say, organic Taidi cha. It's still plantation tea. They cut it, and they have a high yield, even though they don't spray pesticides and fertilizer. So the potential for this tea will be more limited. But of course, Li Chaoyun, who makes our tea there in Yingpanshan, is a real black tea professional. He makes maybe 50 tons every year, so he's making black tea every day, not like us. We're kind of amateurs in the black tea world. It's just for fun that we make black tea. So he kind of masters all the tricks to make the material taste as good as possible. So it's a very professional black tea, that Yingpanshan, and you'll get no off taste, and it's pretty consistent over the years, so I never need to really taste a sample of his tea because I know what I'm gonna get. It's a daily drinker, you know. It's really good for breakfast or for brewing grandpa style when driving. It's never too overpowering, but you won't have any great surprise with the Yingpanshan Black. It's just a solid daily drinker, while our Jingmai teas tend to be more experimental, partly because we are not really that professional in terms of black tea making. Since it's sun-dried black tea, there's an element we cannot control, and that's the sun. So sometimes when the weather is bad, we have more oxidation than we would like, things like that. And of course, some of the batches, we don't sell them because they are not so good. So I only sell the good batches. And we made a couple of batches last autumn, this autumn, but it was just maybe 3 batches One of them is One But Two Leaves from Shanghai. I think this one is really good. It has really heavy sweetness. Now usually One But Two Leaves is not that long brewing, so you cannot get as many brews as with the older, the more coarser leaves, which have more to deliver. So the second we made is the Autumn Gushu Black. So this is from an ancient tea garden, and this one is more powerful but also more rough around the edges. You know, it's less of a sweet experience and it can get some punch. But generally, compared to the spring teas, the autumn teas are less violent because the material is weaker, the raw material. You cannot get really nasty sourness or bitterness, you know, like you could in spring tea. So in a way, the black tea, autumn black tea, is it's quite a sweet experience. It's a more casual experience, but it's more comfort than adventure. The spring tea, you can get some really interesting tasting profiles, I think. Yeah, so, but I must say in the last couple of days I haven't had that much Jingmai black tea because this week I was just busy drinking Puer tea and stuff. So anyway, I think we just sell 70-gram pouches, so you can take one of each and just check. And if you want to be safe, just take the Ying Pan Shan. It's very cheap and you can be sure it's going to taste good. So, do I have enough of the Kunlushan ripe for you to sample it and later order? We pressed 30 kilogram of each ripe puer. It's a good friend of mine in Puer who makes these ripe puers in Monghai. He has quite a big business, so he has a good contract, you could say, with a factory in Monghai and makes maybe 20 tons a year of ripe puer in different piles. So 2 weeks ago I spent a whole day with him sampling ripe puer and I learned a lot. Yesterday again I went to find him to ask him more information to put in the product descriptions. But in the end I didn't put too much information because I think I will just keep learning and make a proper video on the subject, because there's so much to learn about ripe puer tea, you know. So we have 30 kilo of each teas. So I guess they will make it through Black Friday. Well, I hope not, actually. I hope they will sell out, but no, I guess they should make it through Black Friday, so you can order samples. And anyway, it's possible to repress them because my friend still has tons of each tea in stock. But what I plan to do is releasing more ripe puer, because you can see in the last 2 years we haven't had that much offering in that aspect. But now that I understand the tea fermentation better, I think I'll be able to choose more interesting ripe, especially my friend who's really passionate about ripe puer tea making. We talk about fermentation for whole nights. Usually we drink tea in the evening, and maybe every month I will release one of his teas, because he has quite a big collection, maybe 30 different teas. So yeah, we'll have more ripe, and I'm really happy to have released those ripe puers. I think they are a step up in our general offering and business development. So let me check the comments, because there are lots of comments. So thank you very much for all your supporting messages. I will just try to focus on the questions. I think it should be much better now with the new VPN server. So I will keep doing that live stream series on the tea mountains, maybe in 2 weeks, okay? Because I'll be busy with the orders, obviously, now. What clay is suited best for brewing only black oolong like Hui and Dansong? I would say a hard clay. I'm not a really big expert in the clays, but Jianshui clay or the harder clays of Yixing are good. I think the softer clays which absorb stuff are better suited for aged puer or ripe puer. But honestly, I very seldom use teapots nowadays. I prefer the porcelain. Well, this is Jianshui clay actually. but it's quite hard, so it softens a little bit, but I would say that this would be suitable, for example, for the teas you mentioned, like Hui and Dansong, because those teas are highly fragrant, so you want it crisp, I think, unless it's aged maybe. But it's more the kind of tea you drink for the fragrance than to have that slow experience of mouthfeel building up. So do you have any recommendation on a tea with nauseatingly intensive Huigan? Generally, unfortunately, the teas with good Huigan tend to be expensive because that's usually a big criteria in defining the demand for a tea. So of course I would suggest Bac An Oi, which is from Banzong area, or Lao Man. Yeah, in my opinion, those two teas, or Pasha. I found in my stock some Pasha big trees from spring 2021. I think there are 4 cakes available. I put them back on the website. Actually, by arranging the warehouse today, I found a lot of treasures there. So there's a couple of teas I put back on the website. Some aged teas can also have a really good Huigan. Maybe the spring 2009 Nano we have currently on the website. But nauseatingly intensive, it's hard to define because I don't see a Huigan being like causing nausea or something, because it's more like that camphor feel. Like when you breathe, you can feel the air flowing down your throat. That's what I enjoy. Okay, so thank you for putting orders. Of course, there's no hurry, because we'll run the discount until Tuesday. Okay. And I hope you will enjoy that Hekai single trees. I had it this morning, and yeah, I found those boxes. At first it was a bit hard to identify the teas, but yeah, the last spring we already had a lot of tea, and so it's the tea that the farmers just set aside. She picked, I think, two or three of the biggest tea trees. The batch I'm selling might actually be a single tree, but I'm not sure about this, so I didn't mention. But at that time we already had so many products that we decided to put this box just there, actually in a corner, sitting on top of other boxes, and it's only like only today actually that I got to try this. Okay. So thank you for attending the live session. We have like 43 concurrent viewers. I think I've never been I've never had so much traffic so far. So thank you very much, and so feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'm just trying to read them. So could you describe the ideal or preferred conditions to grow tea in your area and how the rain affects it? You had described that autumn harvest wasn't great. It wasn't great in the way that it's mainly related to the rain we had, and the cold also. It was warm until quite late. I think it only got cold like 10 days ago. We had 3 or 4 days like it felt like winter. Today is not that hot. You can see I'm wearing a coat. So now you could say the cold has come, but now the tea season is over, and so we had a late cold, so it's not ideal. Usually you want a cold weather for good autumn tea, and we had a lot of rain, I think, so there might have been some windows of opportunities for making good tea season last autumn. So the preferred conditions to grow tea, of course, it's mainly about the weather around, the temperature and the rain. The other things, it's all long-term planning, like the garden design. But that's why the terroir is so interesting, because there are lots of factors that the farmers or the tea makers cannot control, and so that's why some areas are more advantaged than others. How is this year's Bac An Oi compared to last year's autumn release? Honestly, I couldn't get my hand on last year's tea. I think I've sold all the cakes. I might have a spare cake somewhere in my warehouse, but it feels quite similar. I'm more used to drinking the spring version. Compared to the spring version, it's lighter, but you could say also more approachable. Also, of course, financially more accessible because it's about a third of the price only. So autumn teas are really good deals in those expensive areas. Now, I could have bought Lauman'e. I didn't. I don't know why. I could have bought Lauman'e, but we already had a lot of tea actually. So I would say it should be similar. Maybe the processing is a bit improved. I remember last year the processing was a bit approximative, but I visited this farmer maybe 3 times since then. And every time I showed him a bit, we had the opportunity to cook a few batches together. So I think he's more in line with what we like in terms of processing. Yeah, glad to see the Aunama back. Actually, I thought the guy had stopped the tea business. Someone else told me that. And well, yeah, we were busy, so I didn't contact him. And last month, he just showed up to my shop, as usual, with his car filled with tea. He's quite a good salesman because when his tea doesn't sell well, he just loads his car with tea and just stores the people he knows. And yeah, the tea he brought was good, so I just bought 2 boxes of it. And I'm sure it will sell well because a lot of people have been asking me about Aunama. And I wasn't really super excited about the last, the one, I think it was spring 2021. I found that I had some bad tasting experience with this tea. But then when he showed up, I told him that, and we grabbed the cake and we had it together, and it was good. So I'm not really sure what happened with that tea. But the tea that we have now, I can guarantee it tastes like the fresh forest. It's so nice. I actually have it around here. Maybe I will brew it after that. Sorry again for the small disconnection. So yeah, Bataille, actually I had this tea this morning. At first we didn't know what tea it was, because we had a couple of unidentified tea, but I recognized the handwriting of Luo Kaiyin of that guy. And after a few guessing, like weighing the tea compared to what was written, now we're sure it's the Bataille. And it was interesting to do that kind of blind tasting because we had to guess, and it was supposed to be Yibang at some point, but I found no, it's probably not. It tastes more like Jinggu Zhenyuan, and eventually we traced back the source of that tea. So at that time, I think we had received 10 or 15 different single tree production, and we had kept one somehow abandoned in a corner of my warehouse. So yeah, actually when drinking that tea, it has aged very well. Now the fragrance, I remember in that original cake I said the fragrance is nothing special, but in that one it's really good. It's a more typical Jinggu fragrance, I would say. Very soft and feels milky and creamy, and overall a very balanced soft experience, you know. So yeah, I think I will contact him again and see what he has in stock. I haven't contacted Luo Kaiyin this year. The problem is a lot of tea, like the tea is good, but you just don't have time to contact everyone and to source all kinds of tea. I want to try to limit a bit the amount of products we have in store. But yeah, I think that Zhenyuan area and that Bataille area, it's a good one. I will definitely source again. Sanjiajai, I got a sample, but I didn't like it this autumn tea. I still tried a couple of samples this autumn, so when I'm telling you it's not a great harvest, it's based on the tasting of maybe 10 or more different samples. So that's why I wasn't really enticed to buying compared to last year, which was really excellent. So no Sanjiajai. I wanted to take a trip to the Liu Tachrashan, to the 6 famous tea mountains in the east of Xishuangbanna. But eventually I didn't have time. You know, now our kid is going to kindergarten, so that's also why we couldn't really stay for a long time in Jingmai. Last year he skipped school, but I think it's still better that my kid go to school now. And so we had to be here, and then lots of little things, you know. Is a heavy flowery smell a thing in Puer? Yeah, it is. I think it is, huh? Yeah, today actually that Kunlushan ripe Puer, that's what I wrote. It just smells flowery in a fermented way, of course, like a ripe Puer, but the fragrance is, you could say, is flowery. Also, maybe in the Badaye, you could say it's flowery. Yeah, so it's definitely a thing. And aged Jingmai tea can be particularly floral, I would say. So if you can decide between the Gulan and the Maisaokan, I would recommend the Gulan, because the Gulan is a more stable blend of different ancient tea gardens. I think the Maisaokan is only interesting if you're already familiar with the Gulan. Okay? So I would say take the Gulan first. Maybe just buy a sample of Maisaokan to compare. So no single trees left, unfortunately, but the Maisaokan, you can say it's kind of similar to single trees. It's definitely kind of a deeper, more in the throat experience, something you have to enjoy over a long session, but maybe not as charming as the Gulan. You know, the Gulan has better fragrance and maybe a more playful mouthfeel. The Maisaokan, last time I brewed it, it felt a bit stale in a way, but when you keep brewing it, you just get that good Chachi and Huigan. It reminded me a bit of like Guafengzai tea, some really good Yiwu teas that don't taste like much, but in the end you feel really good. It's more that kind of tea, so it's a bit of a different style. But if you like the Jingmai single trees, I think you will like the Maisaokan. The trees are pretty big in Maisaokan. So yeah, the autumn Bacchanal will be softer than the spring one, of course. That's true for all the autumn tea, simply because it's in the spring you have the highest concentration of polyphenols, because the tea is just out of the dormancy, and you have a dry weather, so you have a water stress on the tea trees, and so that's why it's so concentrated. Now, in comparison, autumn tea, it depends. If you can avoid the rainy time and it's cold, you also get similar conditions which will build a powerful tea, but it's still less powerful than spring tea. But it works well with Bacchanal because it's really powerful, and the autumn tea is really enjoyable. You know, last week when I was doing the live stream on the Pasha, I brewed the Autumn 2021 Pasha, and that was really a blast, actually. And I checked this tea because it didn't sell well, and I realized the price was a bit high. I was selling $180. I think that's too high, so I lowered it to $150. I'm not really sure. Did I buy was the tea that expensive? It's possible, but anyway, I want to sell it, I think, for $150, and with the discount, I think it's really a good stuff. Do you know much about the caffeine levels in my tea? No, I don't know. I cannot say, because and you have the caffeine content, and maybe the reaction of people can be different. For example, my friend who makes the ripe Puer, he cannot drink white tea at night because he cannot sleep. But for me, that's the perfect evening tea, you know, white tea. It feels like herbal to me. So I think there's the caffeine content, but you also have to look at maybe your, I don't know, your genetics, your physiology or something. So I cannot really say. But of course, I wouldn't recommend drinking Puer tea in the evening if you need to go to bed. That's Yeah, of course, especially when it's good tea, usually it's hard to sleep after. So you shouldn't do like I'm doing now. It's 1:20 and I'm still drinking tea. So, so yeah, I will release more ripe puers in the future because now I have a better understanding, I think, of tea fermentation, and I have my good friend who has a big offering, and yeah, I just decided that I will source his teas from now on and keep a lookout for other good teas, of course. Yeah, the Banpen 2005 has a good Huigan. Interesting. Personally, I think the Nano Shan has a more powerful Huigan. The Banpen is more aged, maybe more complex. Mouthfeel, it tastes more like properly aged tea. You know, it's not semi-aged anymore. You could say it's properly aged. But I only have 5 or 6 cakes left. I just updated the count on my website just 2 hours ago. So I'm happy you're enjoying it. Yeah. So could I recommend a raw puer tea that is sweet, heavy, and oily with very low astringency? Don't mind bitterness, but don't like astringency. Often bitterness and astringency are paired to some extent, but their ratio can differ. For example, Jingmai tea is known to be highly astringent and not that bitter. Okay, and Laoman is usually more bitter than astringent. So, well, maybe I could recommend Laoman, but Laoman is not that oily, I would say. Oily tea in my current collection. In the cheap cakes, I think of Tangfang Liangzi. I think it's a great deal at this price point. It's amazing material, but it has no bitterness. Then you also have the Bangwai Big Trees, which has these characteristics of being sweet with a thick soup and oily, but again, not so much bitterness. Yeah, Laoman Laoman I like Laoman but it will surely have a bit more astringency, I would say, than like Tangfang Liangzi or let me maybe check on my website. Can we go on my website? Let me check because I don't have all the teas in mind. So what do we have? Heavy, sweet, oily, possibly bitter. Well, the Bacanoy could also be a good choice, but it's quite bitter. The Naka, the Spring 2013 Naka, that will also fit although no, it's not really oily, but it's very fragrant and feels very sweet. But I wouldn't say oily. The Tangfang Liangzi is oily. The Jutang could also be somehow, but it's more mineral. The Jutang I would group more a bit like Fajanhe also. Yeah, I would still say Bangwai. I really like that Bangwai tea. Oh, there's a couple of teas I need to take out off the website. The Huewa also, especially the 2022. I think if you want to drink it now, I'd recommend you take the 2022. And it's pretty cheap. And no, of course, it's not Gushu, but it's forest tea. I haven't had it in a long time, actually. But it really fits the bill. Or this one, Tangfang Liangzi, or even Wenshanding. Wenshanding would be maybe the most fitting because it has a little bit of bitterness. I remember the Tangfang Liangzi was softer than the Wenshanding, but the Wenshanding overall maybe a better complexity. No, and then we were in the... Yeah, I can see there are lots of teas there. Oh yeah, I found some cakes of Spring 2021 Naka. I recommend you give a try, especially with a bit of aging, it's much better. But I only had 3 or 4 cakes, I think. And that Pasha Big Trees as well, I added them. Okay, let's go back to, so I hope it answers the question. So what must have to pick among our collection? What should you pick? I would really encourage you to give a try to this Huangpian tea, because it's really unique. It's really unique. I'm quite a fan, but now my tea is cold. I need another brew. So I highly recommend you try this Huangpian. And then also the bitter, the Laoman. Let me go on the website. I just saw it. Yeah, this one, the Laoman 2014. That's a tea I love having. It's really a punch in the face, you know, as if like Mike Tyson was inside your mouth. That's quite interesting. Also, really Tang Fang Liangzi, I find myself having it a lot. Now for the others, it's really an exploration. Huh? I like Dongguo also, because in the whole product range, it kind of stands out. It's a different style, a bit like this tea. So yeah, sometimes maybe I would recommend people to try different styles. Then the Aroma, again, the Aroma, if you haven't tried, I can tell you that there's a branch of my customers who are fans of this tea and who are always sending me emails, when will you release the new Aroma something. So I was happy to that I got it this year. Otherwise, I feel you can just go with your guts and try to check according to the descriptions, maybe, or you can watch the, maybe I hope the live streams with the presentation of each mountain will make you interested in some specific areas. Personally, I really like to explore Monghai, especially the southern side. So you can also try a sampler, you know, of Mong Noi, Laoman, Hekai, Pasha, Bakanoi, Nano. I love this area. But you could say for farmer leaf tea that would be a more conventional taste. Well, this one is really different. So, can I tell more about the Feng Shuiling Oriental Beauty? Yeah, so I met the guy 3 days ago, actually, because he's the nephew of Li Chaoyun, and Li Chaoyun is the tea producer not far from Puer City, who makes our Yingpanshan black tea. And so he was at his home, and that's when I just bought the Oriental Beauty that he had made just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that was fortunate. And the Feng Shuiling Oolong Black, so it's so as I understand, it's Qingxing Oolong, which was planted by some Taiwanese. You know, in the 90s, the relationship between China and Taiwan was warming. So China encouraged some Taiwanese investors to invest in some kind of high-tech stuff, you know, and oolong tea, you could say, in the tea world, it's considered high-tech. So they thought they will bring some new knowledge to the tea industry in Yunnan. So you have a couple of those Qingxing Oolong plantations scattered around Yunnan. You have some in Wuliangshan, in Ailaoshan, where we also source tea. And there was one in Feng Shuiling. So I haven't been to that place. It's on the road to Jinggu. It's maybe 2 hours away by car. I need to visit there. I was really shocked at the yield, because he has quite a big surface. I don't know, maybe 50 hectares, something like that. Hey, and he only makes like 200-300 kilos a year. So it's really unbelievable. I don't know what's going on in his garden, but it must be engulfed in weeds or something. He says he's managed the garden for just a couple of years, I think. Well, he's a young guy, so he must be in his early 20s, and so yeah, I'd love to visit the garden with him and maybe see see what can be done. Because especially now, I like the material really, because you can feel the tea is growing slowly. It's really concentrated in polyphenol. It has a strong taste. So in a way, I'm happy that he has such a low yield, but I'm not so happy for his business, because you cannot really have like 50 hectares plantation of a high value varietal and only make like 200 kilo a year. So I guess he can still improve without compromising the quality, because Mr. Huang in Ai Lao Shan has a much higher yield than this. I think he makes I think 20 tons a year or something, and yet his tea is really good. And I think for oolong tea the logic is a bit different than for puer. You can maybe have a high yield and get the nice fragrance that you want in oolong tea. But at least this black tea, it has the really good mouthfeel, so it's also a black tea I like to have when driving. You brew it grandpa style in a thermos bottle, and you can go a long way with that tea. How is shipping? Shipping is very good. That's why I don't offer UPS or DHL anymore, because yeah, I lost, I think last time I lost like $4,000 worth of tea, a big order from a customer in the US, because the shipping agent hadn't written a proper product description or something, and it was destroyed by the customs. That's very unfortunate, but of course I'm not here to talk about my daily business little troubles, huh? So it doesn't matter, but I don't offer it now because I don't see the point really. Since the end of COVID, now shipping is working very well. You don't have as many delays. You still have some delays sometimes, but I don't find as much demand, and it's so expensive really, DHL and UPS. I think it's better to buy good tea and be patient. Anyway, your tea is aging during transportation. Isn't that wonderful? Like the post office is aging tea for you. Do I think this year's autumn Bacchanoi is better than last year Laoman? Last year Laoman. But last year Laoman only had natural tea gardens. I remember it sold out very quickly. So the price is very different. I remember last year's Laoman was really good deal actually. It was very cheap tea and good taste. The Bacchanoi is maybe 3 or 4 times more expensive, but it's the big trees, not the gushu. So the spring version we sell is more expensive because it's a higher quality of tea. It would be a bit like the Jingmai single trees. It's only the biggest trees. Now this autumn harvest is just the bigger trees of the garden, but not necessarily really the biggest ones. Same quality, so what they call tashu, literally big trees, and not gushu, which would be ancient trees. Of course it's more powerful, the Bacchanoi, but since the price is so different, I think it's a bit hard to compare. And yeah, I highly recommend the 2021 Autumn Pasha. I was really happy drinking it during my live stream last week on Pasha Mountain. So I've just returned from Taiwan and learned that in the past 2 years the weather wasn't good for the tea farmers and plants, and you can really taste it. Can you say more about it if you know? I don't know because I don't live in Taiwan, and these weather things, they are of course very local, so I don't know what's going on in Taiwan. I'm sorry. In Yunnan, I think it's just normal agricultural life. You know, you have good harvests and bad harvests, but we still make it. You know, we've had a really exceptional spring 2023 harvest, and that's why I decided to source more spring 2023 instead of this autumn harvest, because it's just average, I would say, this autumn harvest. Will you make another European tour and stop by Paris this time? So I must admit I didn't stop by Paris because because I went on the tour with my mother and my kid, and my mother totally refused to drive the car in Paris because she lived in Paris at some point, and she really hates it. So I tried to negotiate a bit, but apparently there was no way we could go to Paris in the city center with the car. So we didn't go eventually. And I wanted to do some tasting as I was leaving France, but yeah, I just couldn't make it. I'm sorry. So it's likely I will go to Europe during the winter. And yeah, it's possible I will make a tour, but I'm not absolutely sure about it, because I also like to travel and meet old friends and spend time with my family. But if I take a tour, I know that I will go to cities that I haven't been to early this year. We had a tour in maybe 15 different cities in January, I think it was, or February. So I will try to take a different path. I'm thinking of northern Italy, and maybe, I don't know, again I need to do some Google mapping for this. And I will definitely include Paris. But France is a difficult country because in France you have one big city, which is Paris, and then the rest is all small cities and it's quite distant from each other. So and I don't have many customers in France. I am French, but I have way more customers in Germany. France is just maybe 7% of our total sales. And so, of course, I could gather people in Paris for some tea tasting sessions, but not really in the other cities because they are too distant from each other. Astringency is not sourness. It's very different. Astringency is like when you have a cow tongue, you know? Have you ever been licked by a cow? Well, that's how astringent feels like, you know? It feels you have a very, the gums, the tongue just contracts and feels rough on the palate. So that's astringency. While sourness is more something that bites on the side. And sourness, again, is different from bitterness. And if you want to learn about this, I would say just drink black tea, because you have the three. You have astringency, bitterness, and sourness in black tea, especially in our Jingmai blacks. So you can learn about these flavors by drinking black tea. You don't really have sourness in puer tea, at least unless something goes very wrong. Unsure if you should choose the autumn Bacchanoy or the spring small trees. Hard choice. Could do a side-by-side. You know, personally, Laumana is my favorite village, so I would say go with the Laumana. But Bacchanoy might be a bit more, since it's Tashu, it's big trees, it will probably be have maybe a bit more Huigan, less astringency, and a bit more intense, deep experience. Laumana small trees might feel a bit more superficial, but also more aggressive, more character, more punchy. So it depends. Yeah. Well, you know I like Laumana, so. Hokai versus Bacchanoy. I would say, of course, Bacchanoy is more expensive and it's a more powerful terroir. Hein? It's the Banzong area. But I like Hokai tea. And I had this discussion with my friend who makes the right puer tea. Like, does Hokai really taste like Jingmai or not? And it still tastes different, but Hokai is the softest area in Monghai. Bacchanoy is more Banzong character. So I would say if you're not too familiar with Monghai area, try the Bacchanoy. Try the Bacchanoy or the Nannuo, because these are more representative of the overall Monghai terroir. Hokai is a bit of an outlier, I would say, in the Monghai area. And they have a different varietal, actually. So can I sell the very nice maps of the villages I show in my videos? I bought them on Taobao. I'm not really sure I can sell them. It's quite a pain to ship, because how am I going to wrap this into a box? I don't have big boxes for that. Maybe you can buy them yourself on Taobao, or I don't know. But yeah, they are surely nice maps, and every time I have visitors, I like to show the maps. But otherwise, just go to Google Earth, you know. That's the best map you can get, huh? High resolution pictures on my website. Yeah, unfortunately, I downsize them to make sure they are fast. Otherwise, yeah, it's better to have a fast website than pictures that most people won't see the difference with the high resolution. You know, half of the people just use the phone nowadays. Yeah, maybe I could release some high resolution pictures, but I'm not that much of a photographer, I think so. But I think the original format is I don't remember, 4,000 by 3,000 something, so they are pretty big. So to compare the Laomana from last autumn to the spring version from 2023, I remember the Laomana from last autumn was quite green, it was quite fresh. I was a bit surprised by this character in Laomana. Unfortunately, I don't think I have a cake left of it, or somewhere in the warehouse. So I'm not sure how to compare them really. I haven't tasted them side by side. But that's why I sell samples, because it's always cool to have lots of samples. To me, that's really the point in Puer Tea. It's comparing them, you know. And then when you buy a cake, it's more like having a bit of fraud, like, you know, with a tea. Like, you can enjoy the cake over 2 or 3 years, you know. You can see how it ages. So I think both are good. If you're a total beginner, I would say only buy samples, and then after a while just order some cakes and some samples. But I think it's good to keep ordering samples. So so thank you very much for all your comments. I will just try to select the questions, so I'm just reading now, huh? So you're not very good at tasting tea. I'm not very good at tasting tea. I don't really know why. I tried a few raw pours, but they all tasted exactly the same for me. Got any recommendations from your store for me? Well, personally, I think I'm quite a bad taster, or I don't know. It's hard, because when it comes to putting names on the teas, I'm really bad at this game, you know. Like, you have to smell, and is it like fruity, flowery, or hay and stuff? So sometimes I get the revelation, you know. But I'm not really good at giving you like 10 adjectives for that tea. But usually, if it's about blind tasting, I feel I'm quite reliable at blind tasting the tea, you know, and telling you where it comes from. If they all taste the same to you, it's because you're not used to it yet. What really helps you is doing side-by-side tasting. You know, so at first you can take 2 very different teas. Just start with a ripe puer and a raw puer, you know. The difference should be quite obvious. And then you can get closer and closer, you know. So you can try like a soft tea. This is an aggressive tea. Like, you can try the Bang Wai. This is Laoman. And the difference should be quite pronounced. If you don't feel any difference, maybe you want to look at your water quality. Make sure you can buy like bottled water. You need a low mineral content. I had this problem when I started my tour in Europe in January. I hadn't planned for this, but the water in most parts in Europe is very hard. And honestly, all the tea I brewed during the first session, they tasted very similar because the hardness of the water just smothers the aroma. You know, these aromatic molecules, they just fix to the ions in the water, and you can not smell them. But the locals I was drinking with weren't that settled by this, so I think you can also get used to drinking tea with hard water. But I would say don't judge your tasting abilities, you know, because like to me, even like being able to say a lot of names over a tea fragrance, it's really smoke and mirrors to me. When I know people are really good tasters, you know, is when they can blind taste, they can identify a characteristic in the blind taste, they can tell you how the tea was processed, where it comes from, these kind of things, you know. And the best taster I know is the guy who presses our cakes. He is really, really amazing. Like, you brew him the tea, he can tell you, you did it like this or that. And he's super sensitive to astringency. So he's like my astringency taster. Because personally, sometimes I have a hard time tasting astringency. Maybe it's because I drink too much Jingmai tea. So just keep drinking, and you know, as long as it's fun, it's not really a competition. There's no goal at all. It's just about trying to understand, trying to make sense of things. And sometimes you also learn, you become a better taster also by learning to pay attention. So it can require a bit of effort, but if you have the time and energy, just sit on your table. You see, like I'm talking, I'm doing the live stream, I'm not really focused on the taste of tea now. But if I was alone, you know, early in the morning or late at night, and just looking at the leaves like this and brewing with your heart, then you can taste better. You can also take tasting notes. I feel that when you write things down on the paper, you know, it's a bit like doing math. Like you can do simple math in your head, but if it gets a bit complicated, it's much better to have a paper. It's a bit the same with tasting tea. Now, if you want to play the naming fragrance game, you can help yourself with a flavor wheel. So the flavor wheel has simple flavors in the inside and then more and more detailed flavors on the outside. So you can trace a path, you know, and it can help you in some way. I just don't really work on this because I'm not too interested in that game, because to me it's more like a show and it's not really the essence of tea. It's not why I'm drinking tea. And really don't neglect the perception of the mouthfeel, because for a puer tea drinker that's way more important. After some experience, you'll find out that what we call bitterness, that there are different kinds of bitterness. Try to explore what we call minerality, which is a play between bitterness, astringency, and fragrance. Usually, try to feel the viscosity of the tea. So sometimes you might be a bit disappointed at the tasting descriptions I write on my website. I try not to go too in depth because at the end it's a bit pointless, you know. Like if I tell you that the tea tastes like blueberry jam on blueberry jam on soft bread in the early morning, then it doesn't really make sense, doesn't really help you in the choice. So you can keep around this idea of power. So you have the power. You have like powerful tea and weak tea. I would say weak tea is not so desirable, you know. So usually the price is often correlated with the power of the tea. But that power can be soft or aggressive, you know. So Iwu tea is powerful but it's soft, and Laomana tea is powerful but it's aggressive. And then you can find the same characteristics. So for example, like that Kuchra, that bitter tea from Xiaomongsong in the south of Sichuan. Well, to me, that would be extremely aggressive, extremely bitter, but weak. There's nothing really to support the aggressiveness, you know. You could say it's also a bit like music, like what's a good sound in music, and you can have an aggressive sound, like with lots of distortion and things, you know, like, but it's done in a good way, and it feels powerful. But you can have a soft sound which also feels powerful. I don't know, you can have like AC/DC. I feel like they have a powerful sound, you know, with distortion, so you could say that would be quite aggressive. But if you listen to some classical music, you can also have some pretty violent pieces, even if the sound is clean. And then I would say the epitome of that is jazz, but I'm talking about tea. Today is Black Friday, okay? It's not the music day. So yeah, but anyway, that's the whole point, actually. Feeling that you're a bad taster, it means that you are enticed to try more puer tea and more stuff like this, you know. Out of the shoe selection, what I would recommend the most, I think to me the one that struck the biggest note is the Dadugang, but the Dadugang is quite hardcore because it still has that fermentation taste. But if you go beyond that fermentation taste, I would say in 1 year it will be the best tasting, the best ripe puer tea in our collection. And then I particularly like the Kunlushan because it's very soft and very thick, and it also has that that fermentation taste because all these ripe puers were fermented in winter 2022. So it's better to do the fermentation in winter because you have a cold and dry air, and you can more easily control the fermentation, and especially the drying step, because you know you put it in a pile with lots of water, and when you feel the fermentation is at the right point, you need to get the tea dry, so you put it in small mountains like this. And at this time there's an optimal time in which the tea needs to dry. It shouldn't be too slow nor too fast, and apparently winter is the most suitable time because it's easier to control everything. But so winter 2022, so it's only less than 1 year, and you know that these teas are supposed to be stored a bit, but I think it's not that bad. And well, I say that there's a way, but I've tasted much worse before. You know, like when you drink tea just out of the pile with still all the mold on the tea, you feel like you're just drinking a trash can. Huh? It smells like rotten vegetables. Now, the teas we have now are not as bad, but in terms of personality, I really like the Dadugang. And then for the nice experience now, I would say the Kunlushan. But I will need to drink them again and again over. I will need to digest all this because I wrote basic tasting notes, but they are quite fresh from the pressing factory, so that's one factor. They will get a bit more personality in the next weeks. And you need to spend some time, I think. And the winter is a good time because during the cold weather, usually you prefer to drink ripe puer. Can I tell more? Can I tell more about genetic authentication of puer tea? That's interesting because I just discussed that 3 or 4. Well, just yesterday, actually, I just discussed that briefly yesterday, and I think we could do it because, especially for the Gushu, because I remember I read a paper a long time ago which did some genetic profiling in different areas, and they said that by checking the genetic profile, you could tell where the Gushu comes from. Why the Gushu? Because it's been there for hundreds of years in that climate, and so there has been natural selection. So you could say each ancient tea mountain, old tea mountain, has a kind of you know, a kind of genetic pool, something, a common genetic pool. It's probably not 100%, but yeah. Well, I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly what the paper said. But for the small trees, it will be harder because they don't always use the seeds from the Gusu to plant the small trees. And so it might more depend on the government policy and their logistics. But it's probably possible, but I don't think it will be pushed by the puer tea industry in this time. Actually, like 3 days ago, we had a big show in the big theater in Puer City. There was like 300 people attending with all the officials and stuff. And I was invited to speak, and my whole speech, well, which was just like 5 minutes, but I pushed for the geographic indication. I still have that idea in my mind that if they want the price of Jingmai tea to increase, entering the UNESCO World Heritage is not sufficient because they need the traceability. Nowadays, in China, if you look at the live streams on TikTok, they are all selling Jingmai tea, but it's all mislabeled, you know. So now Jingmai tea is mainly a good name for selling tea, but if you have no protection of the origin, you will lose a lot of that benefit of popularity to fake tea. No, the genetic profiling would be an even a stronger tool, because it would allow to do controls which are completely independent. It would be like a biological evidence, so like some forensics, you know, could be used maybe by the police, you know, to do some checks in the tea market, which you couldn't really do with the geographic indication. But I remember when I was at Agricultural University, we had our teacher of microbiology. He said they had devised a system. Each of the grape in the wine, they have a specific ecological community of microorganisms, and they could use this tool to identify the origin of the tea. And when they explained that to the different syndicates, you know, in the wine industry, they didn't seem very supportive of the idea. So, you know, I think that mislabeling and stuff is not only happening in the tea industry, and getting that level of forensics might be too disturbing politically, I think. So I think it's feasible scientifically, but it won't be pushed by the industry. So what am I looking forward to in 2024 as far as my craft? I don't know. I hope we'll have a good weather. What are the big projects? I will renovate next year. I will renovate our house in Jingmai and just use this opportunity to maybe make some adjustments in the tea factory. But honestly, I like the way the tea factory is. It's very simple. You could say very backwards, but you don't need much better tools, you know, to make good tea. In my opinion, I don't need better machines or anything. Maybe air drying would be nice if I wanted to make black tea. Maybe some a yauching machine, a shaking machine. But you know, I'm not really a gear guy, so I don't care that much. I'm just looking forward to more exploration, more time to explore the tea mountains, maybe better connection with the tea enthusiasts. Learning more about the tea areas. It's all about having time. And then I'd like to keep growing my business, because it will allow me to do things at a bigger scale. And there are things that you cannot do at a small scale. For example, ripe puer. You know, I'm a bit frustrated in a way, because in the last couple of months I've talked a lot with my friend who I buy the ripe puer from, and he has quite a big business, probably sells like 50 tons a year, and because he sells 50 tons a year, he can have a lot of fun doing all kinds of experiments with the ripe puer. But you can, if you want to do the traditional fermentation, it's at least 2 tons. Okay, you can do small batches with 200 kilo, but according to my friend, you still get the, there are some profiles that you can only get with the traditional method. And so I hope at some point I will be in the capacity to sell that kind of amount of tea. And so that way I could just make my own piles, you know, buy material in the mountains, maybe make piles with individual areas, and then blend, sell them as original areas, or maybe blend them and stuff like that. But currently the business is too small. Now, of course, it won't happen next year, but I hope in the next 10 years maybe, I hope I will be able to do these things. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I mentioned that I apply a similar percent of markup on all teas. Given this, do you think some of your raw cakes offer the best value? Yeah, I would say, of course you have diminishing yields, so in a way you could think that the best value is the cheapest teas, you know, like you have like the Fat Zhanhe, the Bangwai, Tangfang Liangzi. These are really good values. But of course, if you want a better tea, you have to pay more. It works like most products in life. If you, yeah, so on some characteristics, like if you want a good tea for a fairly cheap price, try the Aroma. I think that's why it was so enjoyed, because you have a really amazing tea, the kind of tea you'd get in super expensive Yiwu tea, you know, for really a fraction of the price. But I try to mention it usually when it's a good price for value. But also I try not to source from the places which are not good price for value. That's why I don't really do Yiwu tea, because I just feel overall it's expensive. Even Bingdao area, you know, the 5 villages of Bingdao, it's just too expensive to me compared to the taste. You can get really good Mong Hai tea for this price, and I definitely prefer Mong Hai tea. So you could say it's also my job, you know, to curate the tea and make sure that the price for value is good. Yeah. So I hope we can have better, theoretically we should have better and better price for value, because we're refining our tea selection. And I hope I have better tea now than I had 5 years ago. You know, for example, that Fat Zhanhe tea or Bangwai, these are really excellent value, I think. Really good quality for the price. And we make sure that even our cheapest cakes are good. Of course, I could sell cheaper tea, but then people will say my tea is not good. So it will be bad for business. And anyway, you have the shipping fee, which is like a base cost. So every cake you buy, you have maybe $6 to $8 of shipping fee included in the price. Okay. What do you think about waking up the tea after being shipped? Is it possible that the taste of the sample is affected by being mailed? Do they need to rest before being tasted? According to people's experience, they need to rest, but I have a hard time finding like a theoretical reason for that, because the tea is sealed in a pouch. So the only thing that can happen is a change in temperature, but since it's shipped in bulk, the change in temperature shouldn't be too sudden. Well, I would recommend to rest, but actually that when you receive the tea, maybe that's the first experiment you can make, you know. You just try the tea just after you received it and try it again in 2 weeks and see if there's a difference. That way you will know. I think it will depend on where the tea is shipped from and your climate, you know. Like if you buy tea from Guangzhou, so it's very like hot and wet, and let's say you live in a cold and dry place, I guess that will make a difference. It could be maybe a change in microbial activity that could cause some off flavors, but I'm really speculating here. So yeah, the problem with side-by-side tasting is that you cannot evaluate the aftertaste. And that's true, yeah. But if you want to improve your tasting skill, I guess you're more talking about the fragrance and the mouthfeel. And yeah, of course, for us puer tea drinker, the aftertaste is the main thing. But I would say you cannot really improve your skill at tasting the aftertaste because you either feel it or not, you know, it just happens. There's not much complexity in identifying the kind of aftertaste, I would say. So, but that's also why, for example, when writing the tea descriptions, it can take a lot of time to taste a lot of puer samples. One day I went to a tea festival, it was in Yiwu, and you know, they had that kind of fake competition with the best villages of Yiwu. They would invite those tea experts who would just like cup it as if it was like some Indian CTC, you know. But how are you supposed to, like in one sip like this, in a professional tasting cup, how are you supposed to tell which tea has the better chachi, you know, when you have 10 teas in a row like this? So these competitions are totally fake, you know, total bullshit. If you have high quality tea, of course you need some time. So usually when I receive new tea, I just drink it casually over days, you know, and then when I need to put them on the website, I will maybe make a faster tasting of different teas, but I will have a bit in the back of my mind the previous sessions. So the fast tasting, the fast comparison is better for really identifying the differences between different teas, but overall you can assess your global quality. And if I, for example, need to decide whether to buy a tea or not, I will often, well, through experience, first you shouldn't have too many samples on your table. You should have a more rational way of sourcing tea. So when I taste a sample, I expect it to be pretty good. Sometimes there are samples that I don't even try because it's a waste of time, and mainly a waste of like the tea drinking potential you can have in one day. So, and you should dedicate time, and especially the higher quality the tea, the more time you should dedicate, you know, to make your decision on a purchase, for example. So oh yeah, I'm an honest seller because I recommend you buy samples, and then because I could make a lot of money from cake sale. Yeah, but what makes the most money, you know, is the like reliable customers long term. In the past 10 years, on average, we've had an increase of 50% of our income, our sales every year, and this is because we have satisfied customers. So I don't care if the customer on the first year just buys samples or even cheap tea, you know. And even like some people are students and they don't have much money, it's okay to buy cheap tea. Then they graduate and find a good job, and then they can buy the expensive tea. The goal is to have our customers enjoying the tea and not disappointing them. And that's why, for example, I decided to not sell that autumn Jingmai tea that we have today, because it will create some disappointed customers, and so it will be a loss of money on the long run, you know. You know what they say, like steal a man his wallet and he'll be poor for a week. Teach him about puer tea and he'll be poor for his whole life. Because when we get into puer tea, we just keep buying. So the best way to brew tea, of course I could tell you like a generality, like the best way to brew tea is the way you like to brew, but we know that's kind of bullshit, right? So the best way to brew tea, I think, is to pay attention at the leaves. Really try to be engaged. So not really like I'm doing now, but let's try for a minute to be engaged with the tea. I'm going to show you. You see, when you have your cake, the leaves are compressed and then they will get soaked with water. And the good stuff is delivered as the tea is being soaked. Okay, so that's while it's opening. Like for example, in oolong tea, it's rolled in balls, and at the end of your session, the leaf will be flat and soaked in water. And it's all in between that you'll have those good infusions. Puer tea, I would say, is fairly easy to brew. The hardest type of tea is oolong tea, because you can easily miss the right time, and it matters more. And I don't know, I just feel kind of a pulse, you know, in my hand or something. I just feel there's a right time. It's a bit like having a pulse in music. At some point you kind of develop it naturally. You just feel it's the right time, and you just pour out. But if you don't know that, I would say really just watch the leaves and pay attention to the taste of tea. So if I find this brew is too strong, I must remember next time to brew it quicker. I tend to brew tea very strong. A lot of people tell me that because it's more farmer style, you know, or like people who drink a lot of tea, they tend to brew strong. But people who are less used to drinking tea, they prefer lighter. So I have to keep thinking about the brewing time when I'm brewing with people. So, and when you have a teapot, the problem is you have to plan. What I like with the Gaiwan is the pour out is immediate, you know, but with the teapot it can take a long time. So sometimes with teapot you just pour in and you pour out, because the tea is brewing as the soup is being poured out. But I think that's part of the fun, really. Of course, you can find some tutorials on the internet. You can maybe try to use a timer, but I don't feel it's the right path, you know, to use the timer. I did that really early in my tea drinking journey, but quite quickly I think I gave up on this. And I think like looking at how the leaves open, that's really the key to understanding. Like you can see now, for example, my tea, this one I think could stand maybe 4 more brews, you know, but since they are already open, you really have to add up a lot of time now. So the definite brewing time, it really depends on the rolling, because some tightly rolled leaves, they will pour out very fast, you know. You can feel the rolling is a bit like pre-chewed food. You know, when you roll the tea, you kind of crush it and extract the juice at the surface. So very quickly it will brew. If I show you, yeah, these are remnants of. If I show you this, so this is white tea. You can see this is summer 2021. Now white tea is not rolled. Okay, the structure of the leaf is not destroyed, it's simply dried with the air. Okay, so this will take a long time to brew up, so you need to use a long infusion time for this kind of tea. Typically, like if you drink like yen cha, for example, or dansong, those or black tea, yeah, actually black tea is the fastest brewing tea, because it's been rolled for 1 hour, so it's really pre-chewed, you know, pre-brewed, so you just pour in and pour out. and you need to be quick, otherwise your tea will be overbrewed and you won't be able to extract that many brews from this black tea. And for white tea, you need to do it very slow. So really look at the leaves. So the EU French website for now it's closed because I don't really need it. We really needed it during the COVID time, but now the shipping is really fast and the shipping is cheap. I think China probably has the cheapest overseas shipping in the world. It's almost like if you live in Germany, it would cost as much to send from France to Germany than from China to Germany. Maybe you would save a couple of days, but I think the poor tea drinkers are not in a hurry to getting their tea. And now the problem is it's too much logistics, and like shipping a lot of tea like this can have issues with the customs. So it adds, I think, unnecessary complexity. And honestly, I did that EU website, but we didn't have that many sales. Now, of course, we didn't have that many products either, but the price would have to be higher on the EU website because you have to pay taxes also in France. I was thinking maybe, if I were living in Europe, for example, I would maybe set up a storage in Estonia or some place where, like labor and surface and rent is cheap. But for now, I think that in China it's fine. So I won't reopen the French website soon, unless we've got a big problem or something. So, planning on experimenting with white tea. I haven't done experiments in a while with the white tea because really the basic Guangbai, like the naturally dried tea, is fine, dried in the shade. Yeah, you can dry in the sun, but honestly, I rarely drink white tea, so I just don't feel. Sometimes, I work on the impulse, so like lately with my friend, I've been geeking out about ripe puer, so I'm getting into ripe puer and drinking a lot. White tea, I very rarely drink white tea these days. But, then sometimes I might start a conversation with someone, start talking about different styles of white tea, and maybe we can experiment. In a way, it's a very elegant style of tea because it's supposed to be very simple, but you can also add some twists, in the simplicity. So, are newly planted tea trees usually grown from seed, or are they sometimes grafted from older, ancient or old trees? Would grafting work to have more trees with the ancient tea leaf characteristic? So I've seen some examples of grafting. What you usually do is you graft, the root is the old varietal planted with seeds, because when you plant with seeds, you have a vertical, a big root in the middle, and it generally develops a stronger root system. That's why they tend to live longer than if you plant with cuttings. But of course, you will have a diverse genetic material. So for puer tea, it's fine. Each tea tree has its own gene. But for most of the other teas, you want a specific cultivar. So you will use cuttings. Okay. Now, what you can do is grafting. So grafting, the idea is you have your pretty high yield, pretty robust root system. Vigorous, you could say, and you graft. So you just basically you just cut like this and you put them together, and they will merge at some point, and you can put on top a specific varietal. the rationale is that you will get the taste of the specific varietal, but you will use the energy, the good root system of that rugged old varietal. And it's not too common really. I don't see it done very much in Yunnan because it takes a lot of time. I think generally they prefer to use cuttings directly, planting cuttings, than grafting. So I'm not sure grafting is really worth it, but that would be a nice topic to investigate, you know. Yeah, I keep the archives of previous tea. You can find it hidden somewhere in the bottom of the website or something. So because I know some people like to keep the descriptions, and it's also, yeah, you can have fun, and it's also to avoid having dead links. If you post links on a forum or something, at least you'll still have the page. And yeah, regarding the wine, so Gottraman says, I've been getting into wine the last few months and now I understand the geographic indication concept a lot better. Learning to read French white labels, you realize the value of a system like that. And I would say learning about wine is much easier than learning about puer tea, because you don't really need to trust anyone when you're buying the wine. You can just go to a wine shop, and I don't think they will bullshit you that much about the origin of the wine. So if you can afford like the really expensive wine, you can get the real thing. And even when you buy cheap wine, you can also learn because you know, you can be sure about the origin. So I think for the real tea enthusiast, a geographic indication system would be great for puer tea. Of course, in the short term, it would disrupt the tea industry, and I think that's why they don't do it. You know, like now the political climate in China is not really suitable for making drastic decisions. You know, the heads are falling easily nowadays in the political climate. A lot of officials and things get like dethroned, you know, and put out of their job. So taking such a risky decision, which could potentially backfire, I don't think that would be a very wise move if you're just looking at it from the government official perspective. But of course, I'm still advocating for it. If you had the name of a single tea in the shop as your favorite, which one would it be and why? Favorite tea. Now, of course, I should say the Jingmai Gulan, because it's kind of our flagship product. And yeah, I have it quite often, actually. It's really a good overall tea. But that's maybe too obvious an answer. So maybe, what would spring to mind? I feel I have changing tastes, you know, with as the months pass, as the weather is different, and you could say my favorite tea is the tea that's in my Gaiwan right now. You know, it's good to enjoy what you're having now. But over the long term, I would say my favorite is still Laos. That's my favorite village, if you have to look at it over the years. I find myself liking Tangfang Liangzi and Bangwai a lot because they are really soft and not overpriced like Yiwu tea. So, and they sell a lot to Yiwu farmers actually. Tangfang Liangzi and Bangwai. These are big destinations for the mislabeled tea, and the Yiwu tea producers buy them. Yeah, otherwise that definitely Lao Mana, my favorite tea, yeah? But it doesn't have to be your favorite tea, so it's up to you to find it. So adding prepaid VAT to the store, so this is regarding the European customers. I know that it can be a bit of a pain to go to the customs office and things like that. I looked into it maybe last year, and I saw it was quite complicated. Maybe now there are easier solutions for small businesses. You know, the problem is the regulations usually they are not really designed for small businesses. So if you say like, okay, you need to pay $50,000 to do the license, if you're Amazon, it's nothing, of course. But for now, I would be looking into a cheaper solution, and then I understand that will allow the customer to pay VAT along with the tea, and I will pay to the country. Now the problem, we have a little bit of business in many countries. You know, I can show off and say I export tea to 50 different countries, but of course in very minimal quantities compared to conventional businesses. And the problem is, if I had to do this administrative thing, I would have to do it at the same scale as a proper multinational company, and I cannot do that. Maybe, yeah, I could look into it again, see if there would be an easy solution. But I think from an accounting perspective, it might be a bit complicated, I think. Okay, so are there any more questions? It's 2:30 in Puer City. I'm still on one tea. I'm not drinking a lot of tea, but it's okay. Okay, I think we are back. Sorry about another VPN cut. Yeah, I'm enjoying this tea more and more, especially for an evening like this. I feel I won't have too much trouble to sleep after this, but it's not weak. It's very well layered, and it has a bit of bite on the tongue. It's fairly astringent, but I just like tea from Tangan at the border with Myanmar. Really nice. Okay, so thank you for ordering in our shop. I will check the statistics later. I'm not sure I will be processing the orders tomorrow because I've been working a lot in the past couple of days. But I guess it will take at least a week to process all the orders. That's what we usually do on Black Friday. But thank you very much for your support. And yeah, me too. I really enjoy the night. I really enjoy tea at night. I'm quite a night owl, so it's not really unusual for me to stay up late that much. And at least I have a good reason now. It's for professional purposes. So I told my wife that she will send the kid to school tomorrow. I can sleep late. Yeah, so maybe I can see we have like 46 people right now on the channel. So if you have more questions about our products, about tea culture, I think I can still stay for some time. It's up to you. So, are you interested in sourcing a Yesheng varietal puer at some point? I've had a cake with at least some of it blended in and found it really worthwhile. So Yesheng tea, so the wild varietals, so they are not Camellia sinensis. You have Camellia irawadensis, Camellia thaliensis, Camellia something else. Now the classification is a big mess. You have different kinds of wild varietals. Some can be very bitter, some are very sweet, some almost tasteless, more like herbal tea. Some have purple leaves, some don't. They have normal looking leaves. Some can be very furry with big leaves. And first, I don't deal in wild products. All the tea we get come from cultivated gardens because I don't condone the exploitation of natural ecosystems. Agriculture is something how do you say that? it's a human activity, and it should be made on managed land, you know. So I won't support the trade of wild products. I remember I had some people from Thailand coming, telling me they knew about some wild trees in the forest, deep in the forest in Phang County, so in the north of Thailand. And I said, no, I'm not interested in that, because it's not really ethical in a way. And it's interesting that you have that kind of dichotomy. People who love nature and love those natural products, they might actually have the worst impact on the environment, because they put a pressure on some wild resources, you know. And I think it's better to keep the natural ecosystems untouched, and then you have some plots that you consider are fields for agriculture. And of course, in those fields, we can manage the ecosystem, but to me, the agroecology, you know, having a good natural environment, it's more like a tool in the farmer's toolbox, you know. And so if you have shade trees in the tea gardens, in a way, it's for engineering purposes. It's to create shade, to attract natural predators, to stabilize the soil, these kind of things. And it's also good that as a side effect you have a good looking garden. And of course the main goal in the end is to have a good tasting tea and limit the use of, well, most of the time, like prohibit the use of pesticide, allow you to prevent pest invasions and stuff through the garden design and not through using chemicals. But yeah, going in a natural forest and just harvesting the tea trees, you know that eventually they will kind of damage the forest to increase the yield. So I really don't support the wild tea trade for this reason. And of course, in most places it's illegal in China. So yeah, I also support abiding by the law. And now, of course, what you could do is just cut some branches of wild tea trees and then make cuttings, and so you have cultivated cultivars. Well, when I went to Fengqing, I went to Pinghe village, and there you have wild tea trees from a wild varietal, but they grow in open fields. But you can taste they are not Camellia sinensis. And they have a different fragrance. Yeah, but it's a bit boring. In my opinion, most of them aren't really worth it. So I think I've never sold any wild tea tree. Yeah, I think I sold one from Ta Shuishan in Mengku, from cuttings. So it was plantation from the wild tree varietals that grow in western Mengku. But it was back in 2013, something like that. Since then, I haven't touched those wild tea trees. So, but the purple varietal, you also have the Zhejian. So the Zhejian, they are, it's a varietal that's been grown taking advantage of quite common genetic modification that makes the leaves purple, and you can have this for many vegetables. So you can find that, you know, in the supermarkets sometime, some purple potatoes or carrots. And this purple, you have different kinds of purple varietals. I think one of them also makes the soup purple, but it tastes horrible, unfortunately. I think the one that makes the tea yellow, that's just normal color and has purple leaves, can be good. They developed it near Nanoshan in Monghai. They have the Tea Research Institute, and there are some plantations I've heard in Jingmai, in Mongban village, but I've never been there actually. I don't know, I need to find those gardens. I think you can make good black tea with that, but yeah, I've never sold one. So Are we live or not? Because am I having some problems? Yeah, it seems we're live. We still have questions coming in. Many sellers have started to stock Huangpian tea. Any thoughts on that? Are the locals just drinking less of it, or where is it coming from? Well, I think they stock Huangpian because it's pretty cheap tea. So if you want to keep having prices below a certain threshold, then you can only get Huangpian. This is, I think, our cheapest cake on the website, and it sells quite a lot. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan, but of course, for the price, you can get access. Like, if you want, like, our Huangpian cakes is mostly Gusu material. We just collect our yellow flakes in spring and autumn, and we blend them together. But you must know that most of the Huangpian come from the Gusu material, because naturally in that material you have lots of big leaves and coarse leaves, and so I think in those cakes probably 2/3 of the cake is Gusu material. But it's Huangpian, so it's not that, it's a bit like toasted leaves, you know, a bit like popcorn. So it's not as powerful as normal tea, but you can get the general feel. So yeah, for the price of you can either get like autumn small trees, or for the same price or even less you can get Gusu Huangpian. Personally, I don't drink a lot of Huangpian, but you know, I think it's a fair choice, especially if you're limited by budget. And also you can age them, and when they are aged, you know. So I don't know if sellers really stock more Huangpian than before. I don't do that much market survey, but for sure, like, Huangpian is cheap tea. So let's say you want to sell an aged tea. Well, you can probably find Huangpian from the 2000s and still sell that at below $50 a cake, for example. So that could be enticing for selling. How would you describe the difference between Pasha Autumn 2021 big trees versus Pasha 21 spring small trees? I must say I haven't had the spring Pasha in a while, the small trees. So it's often a question I ask myself, you know, or you could say the same, is it better to have the Jingmai small trees from spring, or for roughly the same price you can buy the Gusu from autumn? I would say for a long session I would buy the Gusu from autumn, because you'll get more depth and maybe a bit more huigan. And for a more casual session, like for talking with friends and stuff, it's better to have the more fancy tea, you know, stronger up front but a bit less deep, maybe. Yeah, that's how I would choose, I guess. Will the 2012 Laomana Shanghai also be on Black Friday? No, I had to take it off. Actually, I just took it off today, because I did well, I checked in my storage and I don't have any more cakes, and I don't want to restock it, because now in the meantime I've had more tea, like for example that 2014 Laomana. Now of course it's a different price point, but I think it's a better ambassador to what aged Laomana tea can be. I've stocked these three, like 2009 Nano, 2005 Banten, and 2012 Laomana Shanghai for quite a while now, so I will just sell the stock I have, which is just a couple of cakes each, and then I won't renew this stock. I will look for other aged tea, because sometimes I feel we need to change, you know, have new products. The Naka is probably sold out by now because I only had 2 cakes, the 2013 Naka. But I can highly recommend the 2014 Laomana bitter tea because it's bitter tea but done in a good way, you know. It doesn't taste like poison. It's a powerful bitterness, but it's still quite enjoyable. How do you deal with tea stains on the teeth? I don't know, just brush your teeth, I guess. I'm sorry, I have no answer for this. You can ask your dentist, I guess, because it must be quite the same as coffee or wine or something. Okay, so for aging tea in the Myer bags, how often should I open them and how long should I leave them open for? Okay, so for this, the fun part is you can calculate the answer. You would need, I did that but I lost the paper. But basically what you need to do is calculate how much you have the oxidation going on, okay, in the enzymatic oxidation. And it requires oxygen to work. So you have a limited amount of air in the Myer bag. At some point you will run out of oxygen, and the question is how long does it take? Now to do this calculation, you need to understand how much oxygen in total does that cake need to oxidize. So you need to check how much polyphenols do you have in a tea cake, you know, and check in the chemical reactions like how many molecules of oxygen do you need to oxidize that much polyphenol, and then you can take a guess. You could assume that the full oxidation will be reached in 20 years. Now that would depend on your storage condition, but let's say it takes 20 years. So you know how much oxygen you need in total. Then you need to calculate the volume of air in your Myer bag, and then how much oxygen is in that air, and then you basically get your answer. I did the calculation. I would need to do it again. The hard part is to find and understand how much oxygen you need because you have different polyphenol content, and then I'm not exactly sure about the reaction, but I found a satisfying answer in the paper. I just need to find the paper again. And I found that basically if you open once every 6 months, you're really on the safe side. You know, you won't really lack of oxygen. But one of my customers is a chemistry teacher in a high school in the US, and he just told me that he's gonna have his students work on this project. So I'm looking forward for maybe more well thought out answer, you know, with different parameters and stuff. But once every 6 months, you know, that's enough. So it doesn't oxidize that fast. So the idea is that you need airflow. It's true to some extent. Actually, you would be okay with a very minimal airflow. I'm not even sure how sealed the Myer bags are. Like over time, do you still have a renewal of air? It's still possible, you know. So Huangpian is Huangpian as rich in caffeine as normal tea? I would think that no, because the tea is kind of overcooked. That's why it becomes a Huangpian. And I would think that during that process, some of the caffeine is destroyed. And I think on the feel, it always feels lighter. So Huangpian can be really good grandpa style or even boiled, you know. That's what they drink in the villages usually. So probably less caffeine than normal tea. Yeah, so that guy one is from Jianshui. We bought some Jianshui Ware and we sold on the website maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Haven't been back to Jianshui in a long time. Now the problem is the design is not that refined in Jianshui. They are not as beautiful generally as the Yixing teapots. And if you want a beautiful design, you're going to pay a really heavy price for it. That's the problem. But generally, that's the problem with Chinese porcelain. If it's beautiful, it tends to be really expensive. And I find that you can get better deals in Japan, Taiwan, or even Europe. If you go on Instagram, you can buy a lot of teaware on Instagram. You just contact the ceramicists. They sell directly. The teaware is crazy expensive, in my opinion, in China. So China is really good for the cheap stuff, like the white guy ones, you know. But yeah, but this one is still okay because it's not a really refined design, you know. I use it because it's black and it's nicer to take pictures, you know. And I can show you the leaves here, and you just see it better with the dark background. So I like taking pictures with that dark porcelain. And you can see that it gets more shiny as you keep brewing. It gets more shiny over the months and years. So it's interesting, you know. Hi everyone, I can see more people are joining us. So we're still at a very stable, like we have 46 from. Okay, we crashed again. I'm sorry for that. It's strange that even in the middle of the night you have connection issues, but whatever. At least I hope the sound is good. So it seems as the earth rotates, you know, the sun is rising in different places, and so we get people from more places now. So hello everyone, and really thanks for joining. So we've been hovering at a pretty consistent, like 45 to 50 viewers in this live stream. I'm really impressed. I didn't expect that many people to come. So I'm not particularly sleepy. If you want, we can continue the live stream. I'm not sure I will save it. Maybe I will just save it and keep it for a couple of days, or maybe do another live stream tomorrow. I don't know. But feel free to ask questions, okay? Yeah, as long as there are questions coming in, I'll be happy to answer. I have no specific topic today. I'm just brewing tea from Tangan. I can show you that. So Tangan is a very remote village. You can see, like, I didn't even know that people lived there. So this is Xishuangbanna. This is where we live. You can see I'm right here in Puer City. I can show you my house. But okay, so my house is just here. I'm on the second floor of that building here, and I am drinking tea from Tangan, which is actually almost the same latitude. Interesting, huh? So Tangan is at the border with Myanmar, and this is Papai village. I'd never heard about it before, but our kid's kindergarten teacher is from there, and so she gave me a sample of her tea, and I really enjoyed it. And you can see I must be on the 6th brew. I don't know, but the tea is going surprisingly strong. I'm still looking for the ancient tea gardens, you know, in this place. I suspect they are here, but not sure, because if you look north, it's very wild. 2,200 meters here at the peak. No, they claim that the gardens grow at 1,800 meters, but the village is at 1,600. So it could make sense if they are on this slope, huh? And you can see that it's really, really harsh slope, so that looks really wild. I want to go there. I don't even know how to go there. I guess I'd have to go probably through Lansang, so like first take the road to Jingmai, or maybe take the highway to Linsang. I have no idea. But anyway, let me see if there are more comments. Okay. Oh, hello from Ukraine. It's really nice to have people from Ukraine coming. I think lately we've been... I think we can still ship to Ukraine. Lately we're unable to ship to Israel, unfortunately. Yeah, so... well, I guess there's nothing we can do about it, huh? I hope we'll be able to ship again soon. Cannabis originated from Yunnan. Interesting. I thought it was from India, but maybe there are different places where cannabis was cultivated. You know that Tali was quite touristy, so it's in northwest of Yunnan, and it was quite touristy early on. It was on the hippie trail in the 60s because there is a lot of cannabis growing wild in the mountains. So how do I choose material for the Gulan cake? Well, first it depends on what material I can get, what good material I can get. So over the years we kind of refine our selection. Let's go on Google Earth. Let's go to Jingmai on Google Earth. We haven't been to Jingmai today. So yeah, Jingmai-san. Okay, so this is our village here. So this is our house, but these are very old pictures now. Now there are houses around here. And you can see that, you can clearly see the ancient tea gardens. That's all that scattered forest. And you see, for example, that would be natural forest, or like uncultivated forest. And that would be the... So you can see, interestingly, a whole side of Jingmai is a natural forest, and the ancient trees, they grow on the plateau. You know, that's Tapinjang, and that's really the best, the most characteristic tea of Jingmai, in my opinion, just grows on that plateau. So that's called Tapinjang, all above the village. But you can see that we also have gardens below the village. Those have a higher yield because they grow in a more fertile soil. But the soil is more and more fertile as you go down the slope, you see. So that's why you have the tea above, but then you can find paddies. You have the river, so the most fertile soil would be at this point. Now the problem is the terrain is too hard to access there. But if you look at some places, you have some paddies there. You can see where you can grow rice. Now here it's flooded because people don't grow rice anymore, a lot of people, so they just flood the paddy and grow fish there. But yeah, I'm getting away from the main topic. How do I choose the material for the gardens? Well, I think most, if not all, of the material for the garden comes from this part, okay, from the top. Because the altitude is higher, the soil is poorer, so it grows more slowly, it's more concentrated, and you get that characteristic Jingmai fragrance in the tea. If you look, this slope here is Wangbo, and Wangbo is on a slope, so you have less organic matter in the soil. The organic matter just is flushed when it's raining, okay? While on the top, you can see it's flatter, and so the organic matter builds up in the soil, which gives a better structure to the soil. It feels more, it's easier to work with, you know, and it's not pure sand. So when you have lots of organic matter, the organic matter will bind the carbon, will bind with the clay that you have in the soil. You don't have much clay in this soil, it's mostly sand, but you have a little bit of clay, and it just builds a complex which will be able to host a lot of nutrients and will act like a sponge, okay? And so it makes the soil a bit more fertile. But on this plateau you have lower temperature, much lower, like it's very obvious when you drive your motorbike up this road. When you cross about this point, like you enter the forest and you get a wave of, you just get a wave of cold air. So the plateau here is very cold. Well, maybe 5 degrees colder than on the slope where the village is. So that allows for a slower growth of the tea trees. And I think that's what makes it more fragrant. And you have a maybe more special biodiversity. The landscape on that plateau looks very unique. But then, so all the tea from the Gulan cake comes from that plateau or from the upper slope here. But then, if you look deeper, you can get more specific about the geography. It's not a pure plateau. You can see some rolling hills. You can see some places where you have big trees here, but you have no forest cover. So you will have a slightly different microclimates. And those microclimates will give you different tastes. Okay, so if I look, for example, my Saukan is just there. Like this is like my Saukan area. You go up the slope and then it's natural tea garden there. And about all this is called my Saukan. Our garden is located in the Noguan. So Noguan, you have to, let me see. So you have this main road. You go, and you have to go up there. Here you have a small trail, and then it's up a hill. So you have here, and I would say Noguan must be around here. Now on the Google Earth software I have a more detailed mapping of the zone. So I get the tea according to taste. Over the years I just taste different plots which I have access to. This year we got access to my Saukan, which is a really good garden. We didn't have access to it before because another tea boss booked the tea for this family. Access to, and half of it is what we want to purchase. And of course the good tea tends to be harder to access, and we make sure that each year we refine the blend. So that's how we make the Gulan. And so at the end of the harvest we check all the batches we got, and we try to see if there's any outlier. Like for example, this year we picked some my Saukan. So, and I think we had some Noguan, or maybe we didn't, I don't remember. Or some we sell as Maocha, just for people to have a taste at a single garden tree, a single garden tea. They each have their own characteristics. And then the rest of the tea, if the quality is good, we just blend it into the Gulan. So usually you'll have 5 or 6 gardens in the Gulan. Okay? And so that's our flagship cake, to say. How common is it to blend gushu material and sell the tea under that label? It's common to blend the gushu material, but it's not common to say it's a blend, because a blend, it doesn't sound good. It's the same as a plantation tea, you know, like tidy in Chinese. It sounds really bad. And then if you say pinpei, it also, like the blend, literally blend in Chinese, it doesn't sound good to the consumers. The consumers like to buy chunliao, like pure material. But of course that idea of pure material, it's pure bullshit, because everything is a blend. If I pick the leaves from a single tree, the leaves on the top tend to be smaller than the leaves at the bottom. Okay? So as long as you have more than one leaf, you could say it's a blend of leaves. and you have different scales of blend. So you can have like that Badaye tea we released. It's a single tree, it's just from one tree. But the Hekai single trees, I think it's just a couple of trees blended together, maybe 2 or 3 trees, because there's about 4 kilo of it, I think. So it must be a couple of trees. Then our Jingmai single trees, it's dozens of trees together. It's already sold out now, but it's dozens of trees together. Then our single garden tea, like that Mai Sao Can, it's also a blend. It's a blend of different trees, big and small, located in a given plot. And then our Gulan cake is a blend of Tapingzhang area, so a blend of a group of different gardens. Okay. And then I don't know, maybe some cakes we buy might also come from different gardens. I don't go into that much details about the other areas because I don't always have the information. But for example, the Laomana tea we buy, well, it's probably a tea from many different gardens. Now, I know that Ai Xiangnan says that his sweet tea comes from a specific garden. I haven't identified which garden it is. I could do that in the future, actually, if you're interested in this. Now, I know we're all tea geeks, but we must put some limits in terms of the complexity, otherwise it's just too much information. So I try, because I have an easy access to that information in Jingmai, I try to give more information about Jingmai. So I say the Gulan cake is a blend. It's a blend at the scale of the village. It's just different tea gardens on that plateau. So even just a specific part of the gardens of that village, okay? Now, if you buy like a mislabeled Laobanzhang, like a cheap Laobanzhang cake, well, maybe it's a blend of several villages around Laobanzhang, or it's a blend around Monghai area. If you buy a Taiyi 7542, then it's a blend of dozens, if not hundreds of areas all around Yunnan. And especially those big factories, as the price of tea increases, they need to go further and further. So, you know, 7542, it used to be Bulangshan and Mongsong and Bada and Dadugang, but nowadays it's more likely Baoshan and Wuliangshan and areas Lansang where the tea is cheaper, you know. But of course, it's the job of the blender to try to keep a consistent taste. So, yeah, it's not good marketing to say that you sell blended cakes in China, but every cake is a blend. It's just a matter of scale. So, other problems. Is there something special to look out for when visiting Yunnan as a tourist to visit tea gardens? Well, the main problem would be the language barrier. If you don't speak Chinese, it can be hard to get around. So I think actually hiring an English-speaking guide can be a good idea. You know, if you can afford it, just hire the guide and rent a car and just go to the tea mountains on your own wheels. During my live stream in the Xishuangbanna regions, I talk a bit about the good spots, you know. I can show you quickly again. Let's say you fly to Jinghong. It's pretty accessible, you know, to fly to Jinghong. So this is Jinghong City, the Mekong River in the middle. Well, I would say either you go to Yiwu, at the border with Laos here, along that big mountain range. It's like the origin, you know, of Puer Tea, so it's quite interesting. Let's try to find Yiwu quickly. Oh, you see Sanjiazai. Okay, so Yiwu is here. It's not a big town, but so for this you don't really need to hire a car. You can just take a bus there, and then you can consider walking, because it's not the villages are not that far. If you're okay with like walking for a couple of hours, you can at least reach the more accessible villages. Now for that wild area in the east, of course you'll need to walk anyway, because the roads are too small. But you'll need someone to take you to Guafengzai, for example. So if you don't speak Chinese, it will be hard to organize. You'll need a guide for that. Or you can go to Monghai. You can go to southern Monghai, the place we've explored last week in the live streams. And yeah, that can be a good idea. You rent a car and a driver, English-speaking guide in Jinghong, and you go there. And if you start early, you can even do it in one day, but I would recommend you spend at least 2 days, if you want to have time to walk around the tea gardens and have tea. You have good tea there. Or you can visit Jingmai. Jingmai is also nice, it's maybe more touristy, but it just depends on where you go, Just go where you like the tea, It's not too hard. I meet quite a few visitors, lately a lot of Vietnamese people have visited me. Someone from Mexico, people from Switzerland, people from England. Now, since the end of COVID, we still have a decent stream of visitors. So if you happen to be in Puer, just come to my shop. I live in the north of the city. You can send me an email and we can connect through WeChat. Do I drink any other type of tea besides Puer? Yeah, I like to drink black tea. Well, I must say I probably drink 90% Puer, but if I don't drink Puer, I can like black tea. Not so much white tea. And some oolong tea. We got some nice Oriental beauty that I just bought 3 days ago in the tea farm. Well, we drink what's accessible. Sometimes I wish I could drink more yen cha. So if you visit me, try to get me some good yen cha, for example. That's something good, or dancong. But yeah, I don't have access to really good examples of that tea, so yeah, I drink 90% Puer tea. That's how life is. How is the brick and mortar tea house doing? Well, it's still standing. You can see I'm on the second floor in my warehouse and my live stream room. But in Yunnan is the tea producing area. You don't sell any tea retail. It's not like a tea shop in Europe. You can see it more as an office or just a semi-public place, Like, if you don't have a tea shop, sometimes it can be harder to meet people because a lot of people, you don't want to invite them in your home or they won't want to go to your home. So the tea shop is like an open space where you can meet people. So it can always be good to meet the tea farmers, to meet a lot of people, like make some connections, But you don't really sell tea retail in your tea shop. And I live in a very remote part of the city, so you probably got lost, if you were not looking for me and arrived here. And I did that on purpose, of course, if you're in the wholesale tea market, you might have more people who walk by randomly, but even then, it's just maybe a couple of people a week, It's not like the Western tea shop where you'll have a queue of people. Hello, I want 100 grams of this and that. It doesn't work like this here. So the tea shop is more like a luxury, okay? More like renting an office space. You don't make money from the tea shop. You have a tea shop because you can afford to have a tea shop, because you have a good enough business. But in the in the Chinese tea business, you also kind of need to have a tea shop, you know, because if you say you do tea business, people will ask, where is your tea shop? If you have no tea shop, it's a bit suspicious. It's a really, I don't know, strange business, or you have a very small business, you cannot even afford a tea shop. Now the rent is really cheap here, so if you have a small business, you can for sure afford a tea shop. Did I make white tea this autumn? We did some over the summer, and it's not pressed yet. I think it's still in Jingmai. We have big bags of white tea in Jingmai, maybe 50 kilo. I have a lot of white tea everywhere, I feel. So feel free to buy it, because I have so much of it. It surely won't run out of stock. That summer 2021 tea, I think I must have 100 kilo of it. Same for the spring 2022 or 3. Anyway, yeah, feel free to buy the white tea. And I don't drink it that much, but it ages well, so just buy the white tea. You can offer it to your grandmother. I'm sure, I don't know, I feel it's a tea for grandmother, because it cannot be bad, and you don't need to know how to brew tea at all, you know. However you brew it, it will turn out sweet, so there's no problem. Lots of talk about communist China versus capitalist West. What, if any, differences are there in doing business in China versus the West? Yeah, it's very hard to understand how business works in China for the Western mind, because you see like some big businesses sprouting out of nowhere, and you don't really understand, like, why do these people make money? Well, maybe because they have connections. The government buy their stuff. The government has a lot more power in China, and if you do medium or big business, let's say a couple $1 million a year, you need to do politics. You need to create the connections, because you'll need to use those connections for a lot of things. In lots of cases, you'll be in some illegal situations. So in a way, the laws are guidelines, and there are laws that we know everybody breaks, but it's fine for most people, you know. But it can be used as a reason to put you out of business for some reason, if some politicians don't like you or something like that. But you can also get really fat subsidies from the government. A lot of the big businesses, they are really subsidized by the government, to the extent that you feel that it's very inefficient. You have a lot of waste of resources. You'll need to spend a lot of money for building connections. Well, I guess you could see it's a bit like the fundraising fees, you know, in the West. If you were like in the Silicon Valleys, I'm sure you would also have to throw lavish parties to attract investors, spend a lot of time for that. Well, in China, it's quite the same, but instead of meeting private investors, you just meet government officials, Communist Party people. You take them on a dinner, you go to the karaoke with them, you take them on some trip, things like that. So yeah, it's very different. At our level, we're not concerned at all with all this, but I try to maintain good relations with the officials, and I know a good amount of officials in different sectors. It's always good to maintain a connection, even though I don't really need them. But for example, if I want to help the farmers and have those geographic indications, you for sure needs at least to know these people and just talk to them, you know. I don't expect much to come out of it, but at least I can share ideas. There are some officials that I meet fairly frequently, and we like to share ideas, you know, about the tea industry, business development and stuff. And in a way, I feel that because I'm a foreigner, when I'm alone with them, they can talk more freely. I don't have to play the political game like they do between different government officials. So because they tend to be pretty smart people, you know, to be in those influential and powerful positions. The problem is they need to use a lot of their brain power to play that political game instead of just working on solving the issues. Because sometimes just the gut feel of a high-ranking official will be more important than a 100-page long report written by an expert. You know, so in a way, you know, that geographic indication stuff, I can talk about it for a long time with people from the local tea institute, but if I just meet, let's say, the poor governor in a dinner and crack a lot of jokes, and he likes me, and in the end he likes my ID, that will be done much faster, you know, than if I explain in a long report how this would improve the farmers' conditions and things. So to some extent things work like this in China. Those general, like Communist Party secretary at each position, they have a lot of power over a wide variety of subjects. And so sometimes, well, the decisions are made while those officials don't have all the expertise necessary to make those decisions. So in a way, you can do things very quickly, and if the guy is smart and makes good decisions, it's maybe more efficient than going through a lot of experts and red tape. But you can also make very stupid mistakes that way. And so usually, well, they either like go up in ranking or end up in jail, you know, because then they will be blamed for making a bad policy. So it's a very cutthroat environment to be a Communist Party official. But I think the reality is quite different from what the Western media would depict of what being in the dictatorship is like. You can think about it like it's like office politics, actually. Like people who work in big companies, they are also in an authoritarian government where their hierarchy has the power on the decisions, and so they have to play that political game. It's quite the same, but it's just with a communist aesthetic added to it. So you don't do the politics at the coffee machine. You just do it in those lavish dinner parties or in the karaoke or things like that. Of course, I could elaborate even more, but I'll just go back to tea. How easy is it to find untended gushu around Yunnan? In a way, it's easier than you think. I don't know, once you get used to it, you know, you can smell the gushu. Gushu is really not that rare. What's rare is to have large amount of gushu, because I think it was a common practice in the past, you know, that each village would have a tea at least for their personal consumption, especially if you go to the Bulang villages. So finding small quantities of gushu is not too hard. But it doesn't mean the tea is good. So it's part of the exploration, you know. And then, of course, it depends on what you call gushu. Like, is it really huge trees or just slightly older tea trees? So what do you think about black tea aging? Black tea aging, I think for sun-dried tea, it's pretty good. You can age it up to 5 or 7 years. For air-dried tea, I don't think it's so good. I think air-dried tea, so classic black tea, will be at its best maybe 1 or 2 months after its production. And it will be okay for maybe 2 years, after which you'll have a real decrease in the global complexity, especially for the fragrance. Yeah, so I have some teas. Sometimes I happen to release teas that are maybe 2 or 3 years old. I don't press cakes of my black teas because I don't really see the point in it. You can perfectly age it as a loose leaf tea, and I don't think people are really interested in building a huge black tea collection, you know. So I think for my customers, at least, like puer tea enthusiasts, buying 100 grams of black tea is fine, but what would be the point of like hoarding, I don't know, 5 kilo of tea, of black tea at home? It still has a fairly limited shelf life. You know, I wouldn't drink like a 20 years old black tea. Of course, it won't make you sick, but it's usually best around 5 years, or at least like you can drink the sun-dried black up until 5 years. But then more than this, I think is I don't really see the interest. I think it's a bit of a marketing gimmick, pressing blacks into cakes. Will I go back to visit Nyot U in Laos? Yeah, I was invited by the tea farmers for their festival 2 months ago, but I didn't go. I didn't have time. There are so many places I need to go, but you figure that busyness, I understand the meaning of busyness. It's actually the art of being busy. Like, it's incredible how many small things you have to deal with, you know, and so in the end, sometimes it's really hard to find time. We have a border crossing not far. I could drive there in 4 hours, but the problem is the border crossing doesn't accept the passports. It's only for the Chinese and Laos nationals to cross. So I will have to fly to Vientiane and then take another flight to Bun Nha airport. Then it's like 2 or 3 hours away. So I would need to go for a week, you know. The Laos producers, they were supposed to visit me in Jingmai in autumn, but they couldn't get the visa in time. We'll probably talk about this again next spring. But I'm still following the project. I rarely, well, maybe once a month, you know, I talked with the people who manage this project, and so things are moving forward. Now they have their own brand, and they are starting to export tea in Europe. But of course, like every tea business, they are having difficulties, like any tea businessman. And I think it's always complicated when you're an NGO, because what's your position there? Are you supposed to compete like an entrepreneur? So it means, in a way, trying to beat the competition with your brand. You know, you work hard to have a better product than the others. But then isn't the role of the NGO to actually foster the business and help the businessmen in that area? So if its tea sells too well, won't it just take away the businesses of the locals? So it's some questions I talk about I discuss with the NGO. I'm a bit of the devil's advocate, you know, in that NGO, because I don't really like the NGO concept, actually. But I think that's why they hire me, because I kind of challenge their vision, you know. I'm really more of a business mind. And I think that the NGO should help the businessmen, but not really do business themselves. But, you know, they are mostly French, so yeah. I think that's the difference between the American mindset and the French mindset. But anyway, yeah. So I just wondered how much gushu is in my so-called gushu cakes. Well, it depends on where you buy it and how far you call it gushu. So it's complicated, because some people will tell you like gushu is very rare and super expensive. Yeah, but then you feel like for them gushu has to be a tree like this, you know, which is thousands of years old and things. So things that basically nobody, no common pedestrian people can get, you know. So of course, under that definition, very few people can get access to gushu. But if what we call gushu is just those less managed tea gardens with typically a low plantation density, very often growing in forest, with tea trees growing above like 3 meters, the kind of places where you have to climb on the tea trees, these are fairly common. But then, depending on the area, you will have more or less percentage of really big trees in that cake. So, for example, if you go to Jingmai and just buy what people call gushu, so that would be like our Gulan, it's more mixed, you know, because there's a lot of small trees growing in the tea gardens. So you will have maybe 20% of the tea coming from big trees and the rest coming from smaller trees, but maybe not as small on average as the plantations. Now, if you buy like what we call single tree teas or danzu, then it will be just from big trees, and you will find a different in taste. Generally, the big trees, they tend to have a deeper experience, but they are less fancy in the mouth. They have less fancy mouth feel. Well, they have usually more in the aftertaste, you know, and better chachi for the gushu, while the smaller trees tend to have a richer fragrance and maybe a more lively mouth feel. Yeah. Okay. And no, I don't think there are only gushu cakes on the market. At least if you look on my website, a lot of the cakes are labeled as small trees or plantation tea or natural tea gardens. So these are not gushu. In a way, I feel like it's an attitude that's very pervasive, I think, in those old school Western drinker, like in Hong Kong and things, saying, okay, the Chinese want to cheat me, the puer tea market is really a cutthroat environment, it's very bad because they are making bad claims, and they are kind of actively seeking to put people in a position, you know, they would love to find people and shame them, say, you see, this vendor is a cheater, things like that. I think it's not that bad, and I don't know, it depends on your connection. When I deal with the farmers or the tea professionals in Yunnan, of course you will find those type of people who will claim that everything is gushu and thousands years old, but they are easily dismissed, and so you might meet them for quick tea and then you don't meet them again. The serious people, the real tea professionals, they will know how to separate the categories. And when you're a tea buyer, of course, they will clearly separate the Shangtai, the gushu. And if you're a bit experienced, you should be able to tell the difference. If you cannot tell the difference, then just buy the cheap one. Now, of course, it's our job, because we spend a long time drinking tea every day. It's our job to curate the tea, and then you have the trust into the vendor. So I can understand as a consumer, especially when you lack experience, well, you can only trust, right? But if you can, from the taste, for example, tell the difference, then you don't need to trust anyone. You just taste the tea they give you and you'll be able to identify it. If you need to trust, it's because you don't have all the information. And to some point, each stage of the supply chain needs to trust the other, right? When the tea producers tell me that this tea is gushu, now of course I will compare with the hundreds of teas I've had in my mind, in my backlog. Does it make sense or not, you know? And then he'll tell me a price, and I will think, does it really make sense to buy the tea at that price? Whether it's gushu or shangtai is secondary, you know, because the shangtai is Laomana is more expensive than the, or like, for example, we released a Kunlushan ripe tea today. Well, Kunlushan is an expensive area, so that's the most, I think we sell $120 per cake. So it's the same price as the Gusu from Aroma, for example, or you have Gusu in Jutang, which we sell at a cheaper price, and the Kunlushan material is young trees. It's just Shanghai, but it's an expensive area because it has a reputation, it has a certain soil and climate, which makes the tea good there. So in the end, when I make my purchasing decision, whether it's Gusu or not, it's not the most important. What matters is the taste. And I'm okay with buying that Kunlushan tea, even if it's small tree. It's not too important. So it's good to be skeptical, of course, but it can be a bit toxic, I think, for your own mental health, you know, to be overly skeptical, because you easily turn into cynicism, you know. If you can easily see the world in a certain angle in which, like, everyone wants to cheat you, you know, like if I'm doing this live stream, it's only because it's Black Friday and I want to make as much money as possible today, and actually I don't care about this tea, and I'm just putting on a show, you know. You could think this, and there's no argument against this, actually. Once you fall into that kind of cynicism, that's the way you can see the world. But it's a bit sad. And I don't think the tea world I don't want to see it that way, at least the puer tea industry. And at least I try to be surrounded by people who see it differently. But of course, if you go to a random small tea shop in Dali, or like in a touristy area, and you don't know anything about tea, like, what would you expect the vendors to tell you? You know, they're not gonna explain you about the particularity of each terroir and stuff. They're just gonna tell you, oh, this is a very fragrant tea, it will make you very comfortable. Yeah, this comes from 1,000-year-old tea trees and things. But just because they don't know better. But then if you go to the right people, they will tell you the right information. So yeah, so I will just end rambling about this thing. But I would say the note is, you can choose in a way in which world you live, you know. You can see the world in a very cynical view, or you can try to make sense with a healthy degree of skepticism, of course, and critical analysis. Okay, so thank you for ordering from the website. I'm not checking the statistics, I just keep doing the live stream. But I think at some point I will need to go to bed, because it's 3:30. I've been streaming for 3 hours, right? Almost 3 hours. But it's okay, if you keep the questions coming, I'm always happy, you know, to answer those questions. How often do you drink tea in Grand Pastille? Yeah, that's a great question. I drink a lot of tea Grand Pastille, depending on what I do. When I'm here in Puer, it will be more gongfu, you know, but when I'm driving, I like to drink tea. And I have that luxury of having 2 cup holders in my car, and I have 2 thermos bottles, so I have the great luxury of driving while having the choice of drinking 2 different teas. So usually I will take like a ripe and a raw, or a black and a raw, something like that. So that's when I drink Grand Pastille. Or I don't know, if I'm playing the computer, doing some stuff, you know, on the computer, it can be more convenient to drink Grand Pastille. Yeah, sometimes I just feel when you have a good tea, it will be as enjoyable Grand Pastille as with the Gaiwan. You will maybe perceive a bit less of the story that's unfolding when you're brewing in a Gaiwan, but you can get the overall experience. Sometimes I even brew expensive tea in the Grand Pastille because I have access to that tea quite easily. But you also get the good Huigan with Grand Pastille. So I love Grand Pastille, really. I should make a video on Grand Pastille brewing. I think. But you see, unlike what I found out is if you're in a hurry, it's still faster to brew tea gong fu style, because you can drink, because it's in small quantity, the tea cools down fast, and so you can drink it more quickly. If you brew it in a big teapot or a grandpa style, you will have to wait for like 15 minutes at least before being able to take the first sip. So in my opinion, gong fu style is still the most convenient in a way if you're in a hurry. Okay, so thank you so much. Oh, nice to have some Russian audience. We don't have many customers in Russia, and yet Russia is a huge market. It's probably the biggest market outside China and maybe outside Malaysia or Taiwan. Okay, you have huge puer tea culture in Russia, and I have a couple of Russian friends who do really big business with puer tea in Russia. Okay, so the Pasha 2021 autumn looks like it was rather red in color. Is it so? Let me see on the website. Where is that Pasha? I try to keep the white balance consistent, but if you take pictures with the camera, you can. I'm sure you know that it's quite hard to take consistent pictures if you're under different lighting conditions, because yeah, you can easily change the. Okay, it's here. It looks red. Yeah, it looks quite red. But these pictures obviously were taken just after its production, so yeah, it does look red. Do I have a cake of Pasha lying around here? No, I don't have. Yeah, I don't know exactly. You can check my live stream on the on Pasha area, because I brewed this cake, and at this point I showed it. I showed it to people. The sound is crackling now. Can you tell me if it's still good, or because I've had this problem in a couple of streams. I don't know what causes it. What makes some puer taste sour? Huh? Puer tea shouldn't be sour, really, huh? It could be just bacterial fermentation. Oh, I forgot the tea. It could be bacterial fermentation, like for example, the tea took a long time to dry. It's like tea from the rainy season, and it stayed on the drying mats for too long. You can dry, if the tea dries within 2 days, it's fine, it won't have enough taste. But if it's more, you'll have bacteria growing, and that's one condition, I think, under which it will be sour. And the soup should be muddy at the same time, because you'll have the bacteria floating in the soup. But otherwise, I think sourness shouldn't be expected in puer tea. You will find it in black tea for sure. Ever consider smaller cakes, like 200 cakes, for more expensive teas? No, I don't consider it, because I feel it's better to just have 357, because 200 is a bit too short of a story. And now usually you will find I have more expensive teas that I also sell as maucha in 70-gram pouches. So if you don't want to spend the money in a 357 cake, then you can buy some some like higher, more premium teas in 70-gram pouches, and I feel if I have 200-gram cakes, then I need to buy pouches from a different size. And yeah, I know some people will say it's a way to have a lower price tag, you know, so to kind of hide how expensive the tea is. But for that I would have the 70-gram pouches. So no, I don't want to make 200-gram cakes. I don't really know why, honestly. So purple leaf trees in Dehong are typically labeled as wild tea trees. I don't see other Yunnan teas marketed as wild. Why is it that? Because in Dehong they do have a lot of wild tea trees, you know, like the yabao, what's called yabao. It's a kind of bud, but it's not, it's a bud that will give a new branch, and you have these buds only in winter. And they are also present on the cultivated, the common tea trees, but on those wild tea trees in Dehong, they are much bigger. People harvest them and make a white tea, which tastes more like a herbal tea, which is called yabao. And from this tea trees, it has purple leaves, and yeah, it's a wild varietal, but which is widely cultivated. It's not necessarily from a forest. And yeah, so the question was asked earlier, but I don't really like wild tea trees, honestly. I find they are not so interesting in the profile. So Grand Pastel just mean putting the leaves in a glass and pouring water. You have no brewing vessel. It's like, yeah, I could put tea leaves here and just add tea directly. That would be a Grand Pastel brewing. So it could be like brewing in a bowl or brewing in a tall glass or in a thermos bottle. But the philosophy of Grand Pastel is you don't care too much about how you brew the tea, you know. So you put leaves, you add water, you drink half of the leaves, then the tea is too strong, you add water again to dilute it. That's the Grand Pastel philosophy, is you don't really care about how you brew the tea. And it's also the art of not caring, so you can brew Grand Pastel with good wisdom and experience. Okay, so thank you, David Zawadzki, for buying the tea. Yeah, I hope you will like the Dadugon cake. My bet is in 1 year it will be the best tasting ripe puer in all that collection. It just needs a couple of months of aging to lose that taste of the pile, I think. Maybe by the time it arrives to your home it will be much better. Who knows? Yeah, you can send me Yorkshire tea from the UK. Thank you very much. I've never tried that Yorkshire tea. Is it any good? Okay, well, I think tea that puer tea that has sourness, it's I don't really know. If you like sour tea, just buy black tea. You can have some fairly sour black tea. I like that little punch, that play between sourness, sweetness, and astringency and bitterness is really cool. That's what makes a white tea lively. How does my white tea differ in taste from Fuding? So Fuding white tea is dried partially under the sun and partially in the shade, while our tea is only dried in the shade. So our tea is called Moonlight White. Fuding tea is typically by Mudan. It's just two different processing style. When you add the sun drying, you have a more minty, fresher fragrance. It's also a common processing technique now in Yunnan, but I like it the old way because it makes the tea sweeter, maybe more muted fragrance, but after a couple of years of aging, you get that really sweet soup, so I prefer it that way. But I must say I haven't tried many teas from Fuding. Is there any truth to the tea drunk? Well, yeah, you can see how mine right now. I'm starting to be a bit tea drunk. It just happens when you've had a lot of tea. The worst kind of tea drunkenness, in my opinion, is with too much green tea. You can feel really bad. But being tea drunk with puer tea is a bit better. It just feels like you need to eat, and after a good meal, you'll be back at the tea table in good shape. So tea drunk is a bit like tea high, but maybe on the lower slope of the tea highness. Well, I'm sure I hope you will be at some point. I hope you will experience that. So some of the strongest cakes on the side right now for tea. Well, if you're looking at the good price for value, I'd really recommend the Aroma that we just released now, because that's what this tea is famous for, at least in the farmer leaf history, you know. Now I can show you the website. Let's go to the raw cakes, of course. Really, the Hekai tea I had was pretty good. I had it this morning, that Hekai single trim Ocha. Pretty good vibe. No, unfortunately I couldn't brew them till the end. I had like 3 brews just to see where the tea was going, because I had to drink a lot of tea today. But I will surely have a longer session with this one when I have time. So maybe the Hekai single tree, the Aroma would have a good tea. Yeah, the others, autumn tea, of course. No, it's not the best for tea. That one makes you really high. It's really powerful, huh? Spring 2024, Peter Goussou. Yeah, the Tangfang Liangzi has a good vibe. I wouldn't call it really powerful though, huh? It's not that intense. Laomanhoi Big Trees, of course, is intense. And Bakanoi. Now, unfortunately, intensity tends to be correlated with price, so it tends to be on the more expensive side, you know. Bangwai Big Trees, actually. Bangwai Big Trees has really good intensity. The Jingmai Gulan. Yeah, of course, the Jingmai Gulan. No, okay, I'm not going to go over all the teas, but usually I write it in the, if you're looking at an intense, the Pasha Big Trees, and I just reduced the price by $30 because I thought it was a bit expensive. So with the discount, it's only $120. I think that's a good deal, that Pasha Big Trees at this price. Yeah. So, but yeah, for tea, really try the Aroma, I would say. Good stuff. So would I ever consider selling those nice Chinese kettles to a foreign audience? I don't know, because first I sell the things I sell the things I know about, and I learn about the things I'm interested in. So if I'm not interested in something, I will have a hard time learning about it. So I don't have the philosophy of selling what sells well, you know. I just go with my current interest. And so now I've been a bit interested in ripe puer. That's why I released that collection of ripe puer. Like I said earlier, these days I'm not so interested in white tea, so we only have the Jingmai white tea, which is really good, but I'm not actively looking for white tea. And honestly, the Chinese kettles, I don't know anything about this. This is a super cheap kettle, and it works okay. I guess you can find this maybe on Instagram. I don't know. I have no idea about kettles, honestly. Fundamental question. People don't really know what good tea is. The tea that contains strong tea, by the time tea gets to market online, it's not going to be great tea, and sellers are incentivized to over-market. So I'm not sure what the question is here. It's an opinion, I would say. I think I would disagree. People don't really know what good tea is. But you don't really need to know that. You need to feel that, you know. It's a matter of the will. Like, I want to drink that tea. I don't really know that this tea is good, but I want to drink it. And I guess, well, like good marketing and things, it's to have people want to do something in a way. And it's always a bit obscure because we don't really know what the will is made of. We don't really know why we want to do things. And I know people who don't feel the tea at all, including some customers who buy a lot of tea from me. They are not interested at all in the tea side of the tea because they don't feel it, but somehow they enjoy the tea for other attributes. So in the end, and so that's why some people will say that that tea thing is all bullshit and everything. Maybe they just don't feel it themselves. Maybe they don't want to feel it or something. Now that drinking tea has an influence on your body, why would it be bullshit? You know, if you drink alcohol, it has an influence on your body. I think nobody would say it's bullshit. So the tea has chemical compounds, but it could make sense that some people don't really react to it in the same way, are less sensitive or something. But why wouldn't it be great tea when it's marketed online? I don't really understand this. If you like Dongguo, really try that Tangan tea because it's not proper Mongku, but it's not too far. And it's also on that fragrance side a bit of the outlier on my website. Try the Naka. Try the Autumn 2021 Naka Big Trees also because it's also quite good in the fragrance, I think. But I must say that Dongguo is also an outlier on my website. Maybe I would need to pay another visit to Mongku. I just felt like, the main area if you run like really good tea is Bingdao, but it's quite overpriced in my opinion. The 5 villages around Bingdao, the tea is quite expensive there. But if you go on the western mountain, I can show you, you know. Let's go back to, let's find Mongku. So Mongku is quite easy to see because you have the mountains converging. But I must say I'm getting a bit tired now and I'm a bit slow. Okay, it's here. You see you have those two big mountains converging and the middle here is around Bingdao. They call it Iceland. That's Bingdao village here. Okay, so, well, what did they build here? That's quite interesting. That's a new thing here. The pictures are from 2021. I need to pay another visit to the area. I had good tea from Baka, also very fragrant, and you see their tea gardens are just very close to that Bingdao area. It's just one mountain ridge away, and it's much cheaper than Bingdao area. They have lots of tea plantations up there. It's very fragrant tea. So generally you have a really good fragrance. You can see you have Ta Shui Shan, so that's a really high mountain there. It's let me see until the altitude doesn't show up yet because it's not loaded. Okay, so it's all forest because it's too high altitude for tea growing. So at lower altitude you have the tea growing. Yeah, this is Xiaohusai. You can also find really good tea in Xiaohusai, but it's quite pricey nowadays. And Dongguo is there. Yeah, it's quite a big village. They have lots of plantation tea, but the family we work with there, I think they live in those houses there. They try to source better tea, so you could say it's kind of a premium. It's an area with fairly cheap tea, but the tea we source is quite premium. It's the better tea that grows in the village. Just close to it you have Molière, which is crazy expensive, just a tiny hamlet, and they have some gushu in that forest, and it's super expensive. I don't really know why. It's the kind of really hyped places with no big justification. But all on this ridge you have quite interesting tea, and so I've bought Dongguo again this year because of the Mongkutis I've bought in the past is the one that strikes a chord with me. So maybe try some other Mongkutis if you want to learn about the region. I have an old video which is an hour long in which I describe all the areas. It's true that recently I don't have other Mongkutis on my website. I will need to pay. Yeah, Baka 2021 was really good, I think. No, I haven't visited Nanpo. So Nanpo is one of the, let me go back on Google Earth. Nanpo is one of the 5 villages of Bingdao. Let me check. Oh, I think I'm going to end up the streaming soon because I just have a hard time finding stuff. It's 4 in the morning. Nanpo, is it this one? I must say. So you have Bawai, Didier. Oh, Nanpo is on the other side. Okay. No, I haven't been there. It's pretty expensive tea nowadays. Although now with the struggling economics in China, it might change. Maybe if you go there, you have good deal. You know, because sometimes the price, the theoretical price is high, but you know maybe the farmer got a lot of debts and he has to get cash now, and he's willing to sell below the market price. Do I plan on sourcing Seopen tea again? Yes, I could do it. I just didn't source this year again because I have lots of other teas, but why not? Yeah. But I think I will need to pay another visit because there are some things I'm not totally satisfied about with these teas from over the border. The processing could be improved, I think, and we could refine the material quality sourcing. Which of my sun cake has the highest percentage of true gushu material? Well, you have to look at the labeling. So the ones I call like single trees, so either in the product name, so like that Hokai single trees that I just added. I'm not sure if it's just one tree. I think it must be like 2 or 3 different trees. Maybe I will ask the producer tomorrow and adjust in the product description. So yeah, I wrote big trees from the ancient tea gardens. So if I write big trees, it means that it's pure gushu. It must be only big trees. Okay, so for example, the ornament, I'm not really sure what it is exactly because I haven't been in the place. But if you look at the pictures, they look pretty old. So I just write old gardens. I don't write old trees. I write old gardens. That's the difference. in the old gardens, you might have like younger trees and older trees. If you look at my so that Bakanoi, I read big trees, Tashu. So that's where it gets a bit confusing, because in that area they have really big trees. So they will separate big trees and Tashu and ancient trees, Gushu. So this autumn harvest is just Tashu. Okay, so it's the big trees, but not the biggest ones. But the spring harvest, which is very expensive, it's very expensive because it is the really big trees, like big like this, you see. Well, at least, of course, to some point I need to trust the farmers, but he sent me individual pictures of the trees he harvested. I didn't put the pictures here because they are quite low quality phone pictures. But I visited, and well, when I visited him again, actually it was 3 or 4 months ago, I actually went to the garden and I asked him, we were in the garden, and I asked, he showed me which trees he had picked. Okay, we have the Jingmai. Okay, wait, we shouldn't have that spring Jingmai single trees, it should be out of... Now if I say Hukaif, what's wrong? Okay, something is wrong with the website apparently. Maybe it's due to my VPN. Is there any problem with the website? So I just mentioned it in the product descriptions, okay, what kind of trees it is. So I try to avoid the term Gushu because I feel now it's been too loaded, you know. I just talk about big trees, but then big trees can be a bit relative to the area, okay, because well, big trees in Jingu, it's usually smaller than big trees in Laoman or Banzong area, okay. And I try not to talk too much about the age of the tree. I try to avoid saying ancient tea tree, because sometimes the tree can be big, but the tree is not necessarily old. Maybe the soil is fertile, the varietal grows fast, and so you just get a big tree. So it's easier to say big tree, you know, because we don't know how old the tea tree is, but we can say it's big, for example. Okay, so I think I will just end the stream here because it's 4 in the morning and I just need to sleep. So thank you very much for watching. Should I really save this live stream on YouTube? Yeah, I will save it and just keep it for a couple of days. I might do another streaming, but I think tomorrow I have other things to do. I need to prepare a lot of samples and stuff, and I will start processing the orders the day after tomorrow. I probably won't have time for another live stream actually during this time. I prefer to focus on sending the orders. So I've covered a lot of questions in this live stream. I will just keep it for maybe other people to see, or if you want to watch all of it. And maybe, yeah, I will see what I do with it later. So thank you very much. So of course you can go buy the tea on Farmer Leaf, but take your time, you know, we have the 20% discount until Tuesday. I hope you had a good time watching this live stream. I'm really impressed by seeing so many people. We've been like 40 to 50 people. I can even show you here what it looks like, and you can see that people follow for a long time with an average duration of 23 minutes. That's really impressive. So thank you very much. Maybe we can try this kind of format. I will, of course, I will first finish the series about the famous tea mountains, but maybe in the future we can do live streams. We can do more interactive live streams, some questions, or discuss a specific topic. Okay, so yes, I will end it here. So thank you everyone, and have a good day. Have a good Thanksgiving if you're in the US. I'm not really too familiar with this, but have a good Thanksgiving, and so see you later. Okay.